We're live.
Hello.
A little late. Better late than never, though.
And welcome to
Hi, Stephen. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Mark.
That was a joke from yesterday's show. If you didn't see it, but Jeff was saying how he's not one of those people who talks like that. And I said
I don't have fake enthusiasm.
Fake enthusiasm.
I'm who I am. When you meet me at a convention and you talk to me, you'll say to yourself, well, you know what? That is the guy I see on YouTube all the time. It's not phony. And yes, I did that as a joke. And Steven said, oh, you got to do that on the show tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm sure he doesn't think I will, but I did.
He did.
You did it. You did it. Welcome to Roll for Combat Live.
Thank you for having me once again.
Yes, we haven't had you on. We haven't had Jeff on for a long time, actually.
That's
I can't
true.
even remember how long it's been.
I think it's about a year.
At
So
least.
who am I, by the way?
I was getting to that. Wait, you just take over the show. You're worse than me. I'm getting to it. It's a long show. Go right ahead. Go tell everyone who you are.
No,
what you're
I'll
doing
let
here.
you do that because I'm kind of curious what you'll say.
Well, Jeff has a almost nightly show. It's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, correct?
No, I changed it not too long, about a year and a half ago. I only do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays.
Oh, now it's Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay.
But I have videos practically every single day. I am Jeff McAleer. I am the founder and editor-in-chief of the Gaming Gang. So we have a website, gaminggang.com, and then I am the host of all the videos.
That's right.
Hello, everybody.
And you're live 3 days a week. And
Yes.
it's a fun little channel. I like watching it. It's very relaxing to watch you every night. And your interstitials are insanely good. I love those interstitials. I don't know. You keep finding new ones too. I would think you would repeat them, but you never seem to ever repeat.
On occasion, I do. It's what I like to call my brief intermissions.
Yes.
And I try to make it as if you were hanging out at, say, a drive-in theater, which, of course, I'm sure there are probably some folks in the audience wondering, what in the world is a drive-in theater? But yeah, I share like old intermission stuff, and then I'll toss in commercials from out of the blue. Every once in a while, I'll sit there and share a commercial that is extremely politically incorrect, just to show people that, oh my God, that used to advertise candy? What?
Well, they're all pretty politically incorrect. I've
Not
watched
all
many
of them.
most of them.
I do throw some stuff out there. The Wilkins and Wontkins coffee, people are always fascinated by because they're so violent and they're just Muppets.
Well,
And people are like, really? Jim Henson advertised coffee with all that violent content? And it's like, yeah, because Jim Henson thought violence was funny.
Well, Jim Henson, he changed his tune once the Muppets got popular, and then he became a kids brand. But if you
Of course.
but if you watch the original Muppet Show, like way back when in the 70s, it was a little violent. It was a little out there.
I mean, it was all ages. I never felt, and of course I was a kid when it was on, but I never felt that the Muppet Show was aimed specifically at, say, the Sesame Street crowd.
Mhm.
So it was sort of like a Pixar film where adults and children found something to enjoy about it.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember from my childhood Muppets, Miss Piggy was like constantly abusing Kermit and like physically assaulting him during their relationship. So like there was definitely violence in the Muppets. It was mostly played for laughs as like a slapstick violence, but it was there.
Well, you might recall the episode that David Bowie was the guest and Miss Piggy was a dominatrix, and it was like, oh my gosh, what?
All right. Well,
Or maybe that was just my imagination.
it might
Maybe
have
I'm
been. I was thinking.
misremembering that.
I was like, you come here for RPG talk, you get Miss Piggy the
Wow. Yeah, I
Dominatrix.
didn't expect that.
Yeah, that's kind of what people find on the Gaming Gang Dispatch during my streams. It's kind of a stream of consciousness as well.
Well, we do the same thing. Trust me.
So I think you've got some news you want to share with people, don't you?
Oh, wow. We're going right into it. Sure. So before, do like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, let us know. And super chats are always answered first. So I have some information, some news that I wanted to go through that I thought was pretty cool. So I saw this thing, and it's really weird because I can't tell if this is a good thing, a bad thing, or something in between. It looks like Magic the Gathering is doing a Ravnica Clue edition. It's called Ravnica Clue Edition Solve the Case. So it's literally taking a combination of Magic the Gathering, Ravnica, which is their magic setting, their actual setting in Magic the Gathering, and Clue. And
So is it
combining
basically
it.
like the monopolies that have a theme, but it's Clue with Magic the Gathering
No,
theme,
not really, because you see, with Monopoly, it's the same game.
right?
And even Clue, it's the same game, because all they do is like change the names of the characters, and they change like the little pieces. So
They reskin it.
yeah, they reskin it. But this is in the actual game, because they actually have like the lead pipe is an artifact, a Clue equipment, and it's a regular magic card. Like here it says here, lead pipe, equipped creature gets +2/+0. Whenever equipped creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. You could sacrifice it and draw a card. It says right here, let's see how it works, is that unlike regular Clue, you're also playing a game of Magic. So it's Clue and Magic. The box includes 8 jumpstart style boosters, each representing one of the Ravnica guilds. Players select 2, then shuffle them together to make a deck. The gameplay then goes similar to Commander game, where you play rotating clockwise around the table. Players start with 30 life and give everyone an equal chance. To make an accusation, you need to do a little interrogation. That translates to dealing combat damage. When you successfully connect to another player, you can make an accusation. If that player has any of the cards you named, they secretly reveal them to you, scratching them off the suspect list. To keep everyone from attacking the same player, if you show evidence from your hand, you create treasure tokens. If you ever run out of creatures, you could also collect evidence, blah, blah, blah. So basically, it looks like it is Clue and Magic the Gathering combined.
Yeah, it looks like you're playing both of them at the same time,
Yeah.
and you have to like do the Magic the Gathering stuff in order to get your Clue stuff to happen.
Right.
In other words, because it builds itself. Now that I looked at it, as you either see if you solve the mystery first or just kill everybody else, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
But you can't just be trying to solve the mystery, because you do need to be like kind of doing a lot of Magic the Gathering things to your opponents to even get the chance to ask them, do you is this like Miss Scarlet or Headliner Scarlet or whatever it is, like with the lead pipe in the conservatory?
Yeah, it's just so interesting. So Clue, so everyone talks about Monopoly because Monopoly is so popular, but Clue is right up there. And Clue is actually, even in Europe, even more popular, I think, than Monopoly. Clue is insanely popular worldwide. And again, I can't tell if this is genius or they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, because they're like, well, what else can we make money with? Let's just take, they did D&D and Magic, and they did Clue and Magic. I think when we see Monopoly and Magic, I think it jumped the shark. I think that's as far as it'll go. But
it's weird that they don't have a Monopoly for that, because they have so many Monopolies.
They will. No. I meant the other way around. There is a Monopoly set, I think, in the world of Ravnica and Magic.
Oh, yeah. See, I thought there would be. I didn't look it up.
No, this is Magic the Gathering with a Clue reskin.
Oh, I see. You're saying that it would be a problem if Magic the Gathering had like the
Monopoly,
the Monopoly Man as like a card that you can get.
Yes. because this is Magic in the world of Clue. It's not reskinning Clue in the world of Magic. This is actually a game of Magic with the rules of Clue attached to it somehow. And
I'm afraid I no longer discuss any products from Wizards of the Coast, so I'll just have to sit here and...
You don't even discuss it anymore? Wow. Okay. Well, then Mark and I will discuss it, because unfortunately the other ones I have are very similar.
I can discuss it. I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I thought you were...
Oh, okay.
Well, that's something else I was talking about, because I know you aren't reviewing Wizards of the Coast books
I've never
anymore.
really reviewed much Magic the Gathering.
Well, I meant Wizards.
Although I really
Wizards
enjoy
books.
Magic the Gathering, and I've been involved with Magic the Gathering since it was the beta cards that came out.
Yeah, I have Alpha. And Beta
Always
myself.
enjoyed it. We can discuss the whole Wizards of the Coast thing a little later on, and I'm not tackling anything.
Are you a fan of Clue or Cluedio?
No, I'm not.
Yes.
I don't play Monopoly. I don't play Game of Life. I don't play Clue. Part of it is because I just don't find those games to be engaging enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not knocking them, but I mean, just like when I would talk to people and they'd ask, "Oh, what's your website about?" I'd say, "Oh, role-playing games and board games." And say, "Oh, board games. You mean like Monopoly?" And it's like, no, not like Monopoly.
You know, I want to be fair to Clue, though, because it's not my favorite game, but it's definitely way better than Monopoly in the Game of Life.
Oh,
and I'm someone who usually on this show will take a middle approach on things and be like, there's a difference. Monopoly and the Game of Life are like, Monopoly especially is like not only a terrible game, but the designer wanted it to be bad so you could see that the monopolies of capitalistic society were bad, and then was surprised that everybody liked it. But Clue is at least better in that it doesn't have some of the flaws Monopoly does, even if I don't find it particularly exciting.
Well, out of those three games, in my opinion, I find the Game of Life to just be the absolute worst. It's just a simple roll and move. Whose turn is it now?
Yep.
And Monopoly, the funny thing is, the vast majority of people out there who play Monopoly don't actually play it correctly.
Yep. They use house rules that sometimes make it even worse.
Makes it like a 5-hour experience.
Yep.
It's like, no, thank you.
Game of Life is getting there towards Candyland, which is not even a game.
Right.
By many definitions of games.
Right.
It's an exercise. It's an activity where you just draw the cards and see what the game makes you do, because you have literally no decision making and nobody plays it. No. It just plays itself.
It's all luck based for the most part.
Well, I loved Game of Life when I was a kid. I mean, I haven't played it a long time, but we used to play that a lot when I was a kid, and I mean really young. I've always hated Monopoly, and I could talk about Monopoly a long time, because my mom's from Atlantic City, so I had a weird connection with Monopoly.
There you go.
So whenever we went to Atlantic City, there's all the streets. So it was like, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Monopoly." But yes, Monopoly is only half the game, because you were supposed to play the game until you knocked people down, and then you changed the game to prosperity. And then you were supposed to build the whoever was the weakest or who had the least amount of money, you were then supposed to build them up and go the other way around. But they took off that part and just kept in the first part. So.
Yeah, but I think Clue, not my favorite game, but it's a decently all right game. It has logical deductions. Fine. There's strategy to it. But as someone who in the past and has enjoyed playing Magic the Gathering, like when I was younger, I played it quite a lot, and who was like, I'm pretty okay with Clue. There's no way that I would want to be doing both of them at the same time. Like, I feel like that would just really frustrate me, because I would want to be doing the Clue thing, and I'd be like, oh, I got a really good Clue. Now I want to do the next thing, and they're like, oh, I can't because of the Magic the Gathering game. Or I'd be wanting to, oh, I got a really good combo in Magic the Gathering, and then I get derailed because somebody's doing something else with the Clue game. And I don't feel like that synergizes to me personally, as someone who, like, at least likes, if not, I loved Magic the Gathering back when I played it. Both of those two games, all right.
So I
don't think it makes sense.
I put in a link, and you can see it if you go to scryfall.com/sets/CLU, and it has a picture of the suspects. And it's pretty good here, actually. Senator Peacock, Mastermind Plum, Headliner Scarlet. These actually are pretty nice. Commander Mustard. The art is amazing. Here's the weapons.
Yes, it was Commander Mustard with the Mox Pearl and the dual land.
No, the weapons are still the wrench and the candlestick and the lead pipe.
But the lands are really cool. There's a ballroom, a billiard room, a conservatory, dining room. I'm starting to warm up to this. I was like,
so you're pre-ordering as we speak. Is that what's going on, Stephen?
They're dual lands. These are dual lands, no less.
They come into play tapped. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the cards are not interesting cards for if you want to just buy it and play the cards in your Magic the Gathering game, which some people will do. I'm saying that I don't really feel that the use case where you are actually also playing Clue at the same time is something that I would enjoy. That doesn't mean it's bad or that it's a bad experience for other people. I bet there are people out there who are like, this is my favorite thing that was ever made.
I'm so excited.
Mark, yes. You always complain we don't play games on the channel. We're going to, February 28th, this comes out, and we can play Ravnica Clue Edition on the channel.
That's the only thing we've mentioned maybe playing on the channel that I'm not really interested in playing. But
oh well. I don't know. I think it's I give it at least they're not phoning it in. It looks like they actually put a lot of thought and effort. The art is insanely good. I mean, the Commander Mustard, holy crap, who is the artist of that? Jake Murray. I don't know Jake. Wow, that is really good art. This actually is really well done. This is the problem with Wizards, is that they infuriate you. Is that a word? And then the very next day, they'll do something like this where I'm like, not bad, guys. You're putting in the A for effort. I give them an A for effort.
I mean, looking at it, it definitely is. They've designed a game. It's not like those phoned in Monopoly sets that just put the names on things. They have put a decent amount of game design effort very clearly into this.
Yeah,
I personally don't feel like I'd want to be doing two things at the same time, because in the past when I've played mashup games like that, I personally get frustrated by the one game getting in the other game's way, whichever one I'm currently focused on. But there are probably people who really like that.
I was just about to say the same thing. You want to keep your chocolate and your peanut butter separate? Is that what you're trying to say, Mark?
That's what Mark says.
I mean, not exactly, because I would say that the chocolate peanut butter analogy is more similar to, I don't know, if you have Magic and Psionics in your game together, but you're still playing your role-playing game. Whereas for me, this is more like do I want to be eating my chocolate peanut butter and eating a meal at the same time that I'm jogging? It's you want
to keep your oil and water separate.
Yeah. Yes. There you go. I probably could eat a meal while jogging. It would be efficient. It would save me time in my day, but I probably don't want to. Yeah, it would be messy.
Well, anyhow, Ravnica Clue Edition, Solve the Case, comes out next month, and I'm going to wait to see the reviews. I'm not going to pre-order it, but I might
can see all the cards there,
I might
Steven.
try this. There's 283 cards. This is just 21 cards. Yeah, that's just
a lot.
Yeah, it's a full set. So that's what I'm saying.
I see. So it's a full Ravnica based set that also lets you do Clue with the Clue cards.
So
I thought that the Clue ones were going to be some special thing that you buy and you get just the Clue.
All right, so that didn't seem to trigger you. How about this one?
Oh, so that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to trigger Mark?
Wait.
No, I think he's trying to trigger you, Jeff.
I'm trying to trigger everyone.
I usually don't.
I got a new one. I got another one.
All right, here we go.
Magic the Gathering. Who let the cards out? Oof, 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 oof. New set. Secret Lair. It's raining cats and dogs. That's right. It's an entire set of reversible magic cards based on cats and dogs. I swear to God. Here's the
okay.
Stephen, I have to say, I really appreciate the fact that you're covering news stories that I would never touch. I love this.
Oh, well, there you
This
go.
is not even similar to our usual news stories on here.
Because it's so weird. I had to cover. I'm just like, again,
Animal lovers will buy it. I will tell you that right now.
It's genius. It's like, this is actually so out there, and this is like ahead of its time. I'm like, wow, they commander deck of magic based on cats and dogs.
Some of them look like they're just regular cards, just with a cat on it, like a soul ring that has a cat with a quote that says, "What a pretty bauble," thought the cat, extending her paw. "Such beauty belongs on the floor."
This one is... It's just amazing. It has all these let's see. You can find it on the website. Let's see.
I actually think this is a very cool idea to get people who want
It's already
the cute
sold out.
art.
So there you go.
What?
It's already sold out.
Well, that seemed like it would be very
thanks
popular.
for teasing us,
like
Stephen. Thanks
Well,
a
no,
lot.
on the website.
Okay.
I'm sure you'll be able to buy it for hundreds of dollars above.
Oh, sure, of course. I could go to the secondary market and pick that up. Of course.
Of course you can. I'm sure it'll also be on digital. Yeah, they have so much. Right, the soul ring. So they do have soul rings. One is literally... Now, here's what's interesting. You got to have one of each. Because they have a soul ring with a cat. And it says here, "Oh, what a pretty bauble," thought the cat, extending her paw. "Such pretty belongs on the floor." And then for the dog, it just says, "Drop it, drop it." That's it. Otherwise,
There you
it's a
go.
soul ring. And the lands, look at the plains.
Also, they have cats and
The
dogs
plains
on it. I
have
saw it.
dogs all over the plains, and the mountains have cats and dogs playing together.
Did you order yours, Steven, or did it just get sold out before you did?
Magic's actually paying me to promote this. That's why.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
I would have been very surprised by that.
What? It's well, I love dogs. I don't love cats. I like some cats. I'm allergic, and so is my wife, so I can't really have it. But I have two dogs. Oh, my Alexa's talking. No, this is crazy. It just amazes me because everyone in the Magic community is complaining how they're doing everything to milk the Magic community for as much money as possible, and they're coming out with a new set like every week, and they are.
Well, I've got a radical idea in regards to that, and that's called "Don't buy it."
Yes, you say
People
that.
complain all the time, and as long as it's not something where it's like, "Oh, you must own this,"
right?
Otherwise, you may not play Magic the Gathering anymore.
Well, that's the thing.
To me, those complaints fall on deaf ears.
They fall on deaf ears, right? Because people buy it. It's like they're coming out with all these sets because people are buying these sets.
Right. It's vote with your wallet.
It's already sold out. You're like, oh, I bet you I said this, and half the audience thought, oh, what a stupid idea. Of course, the other half was thinking, oh, it's actually
damn, it's sold out.
Damn, it's sold out.
Yeah. They just need enough people to sell it out. They don't need everyone to want it.
Yeah, $150.
They just have to sell what they've printed. So that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Steven, is the third one not just another announcement of a Magic the Gathering thing that they're doing?
He's just taunting me with this Wizards of the Coast stuff.
I am. Are you ready? I actually like this story. So, Wizards of the Coast owns D&D Beyond. And one thing they were able to do is data mine D&D Beyond. And they figured out what the most popular character is in all of D&D, what race they are, what class they are, and what their name is, even what the age is. Can you guess let's try the class. Can you guess what the class is?
The last time D&D Beyond did this, which I think was like over a year, maybe around a year ago, I think it was Fighter followed by Rogue for class.
I only have
maybe it completely changed since then, because they did this last year.
I'll go in a radical direction and say a paladin.
It's fighter, then rogue, then barbarian, then wizard, then paladin, then warlock, cleric, ranger, bard, druid, sorcerer, monk, and artificer. Way on the bottom. Now for species.
Artificer was on the bottom last year too.
Yeah. For species, what do you think species is?
For species, I do not remember from last year, but I think it was like humans and elves. Elves were very, very popular.
Well, you might just go with the half elf.
Human,
Just do that.
elf.
Get a boat.
Humans most popular, then elf, then dragonborn,
Yep.
then tiefling.
This
then,
is very similar to last
then
year's
half
results.
elf, then dwarf, then halfling, half orc, Gansey, gnome, Goliath, Amazar, Ararorak, whatever that is, and then lineages and things that are custom. So yeah, they're using the same data, so it's probably not going to change too much. But what is the most popular name? Oh, how about that?
I don't think that the name was actually in the thing that I read.
That's right. What is the most popular name, do you think, that is used more than anyone else?
Well, if we're talking fighters, I would take a guess. Conan.
What about like one of the stereotypical names people always do their character where they're like, my character is Bob the Sixth.
I was gonna say it's Bob.
Right? So it could be Bob, because I've seen people make 6 Bobs and then just the character is Bob again.
The most popular name is Bob. That
It's
is correct.
Bob?
Yes.
It really is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Bob the guard from
Bob, the human fighter, is
Bob the
the
human
most
fighter.
popular character in D&D.
That's such like an online meme stereotype about someone who just names their human fighter Bob, and then when Bob dies, they're like, this is Bob the Second. So it's hilarious that is actually truth in like the meme. Like it's actually true.
There you go.
Now, if it had been a rogue, then the most popular name would have been Phineas Fingers.
There you go.
They have let's see. They do have the average age of the characters.
Cat also looks like a lot of people were guessing Bob.
I know. Bob the human fighter. And the average age. What do you think the average age of a character is? That's actually a pretty interesting one.
That's a really interesting one.
It
Is
is
it the
interesting.
mean, the median,
mean.
or the mode
The mean.
when they say the average age?
mean, I believe.
Okay, it's the average mean, which means so the problem with that is all those elves that are like 100 and whatever are going to get averaged into the age. And it's also going to be averaged in with the teenage anime protagonists who, despite being the age of 16,
Right. So those
are
might-
stronger than everyone else in the world.
Right. So those might cancel each other out.
Okay.
And Elf is the second most popular character.
An elf is the second most popular, and it's not like dwarves don't live for a long time too. And
Right.
Dragonborn, I think, live for a pretty decent amount.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to guess like 50.
What do you think, Jeff?
I'll just say 20.
28.
Then it's the median.
I'm
It's not-
closer.
if it was 28,
Okay,
there's
median,
there is
sorry.
no way that is the mode. I said not the mean. There's no way that is the mean. The average that you told me is
Well,
not the
keep
average.
in mind,
stages.
I don't think people really put down the age for their characters as elves as like 200.
I was going to say the same thing. I would think that a lot of times players would go with, he's a really young of
Yeah.
whatever species it
Yeah.
happens to be.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't matter. You're still not going to get to 28 unless it's the median. If it's the median, absolutely. But even if you have, because of the number of people who play elves is the second most,
Mhm.
even if only like a third of those people actually use the ages that are listed in their book that says you're going to be over 100 before you're an adventuring elf, that's still going to pull up the mean by a significant amount.
They wrote
since
about
dwarves-
this.
What?
They wrote about this.
Oh, really?
While this makes sense in the all-popular human adventurer, what people aren't talking about are all the juvenile dwarves and elves running around on adventures.
Oh.
According to the player's handbook, dwarves
There we-
reach adulthood at 50 and elves
Yeah.
at 100. So if you have a 28-year-old elf in your party, you should make sure whoever they're imbibing at their tavern, whatever they're imbibing at the tavern is non-alcoholic. They didn't say if it's the mean or the mode, but I have a feeling 28 is 28.
I think it's the median.
Okay.
But I think you're
The median,
both
yeah.
right. And Jeff called it before without reading the article. You're both right that people are putting in some of their dwarves and elves as too young.
Yeah.
But I think that wouldn't be sufficient to drag the mean down, since all of those very high. It only takes like one that's very high to drag the average up by a significant amount in a batch of elves.
What is the average character level of all characters created?
Like their current level, because when they're updated in D&D Beyond, it goes up.
If you take every single character in D&D Beyond currently,
is this the mean or the median? Because the median might be 1 for all the created characters that were created at level 1 that were never played.
No.
Right.
Well,
the mean can't possibly be 1, because when you add in the other numbers, it will have to go up.
It's everything. They just say average. I don't know. You figure it out. It just says average current level of all characters created in D&D Beyond. They took a snapshot as of like either December 31st or January 1st.
Oh, it's all changed then.
It's all changed. It's all changed.
Leveled up since then.
Well, I'm talking about as of right then, the snapshot.
I'm
going to
say 3.
Well, you can go to 3. You can go to 2 decimal places. It's not just 3 points.
Okay.
What?
I'm going to say 2.86.
Wow.
I'll say 4.
4.00.
Yeah.
The answer is 4.77.
Oh man, Jeff, you've got this.
It's because I'm so tight with Wizards of the Coast now. That's why.
Okay, the fact that it is 4.77 heavily implies that it's the mean, because it's difficult to get a number that with those decimal points on the median because of the way that medians are calculated. There you go. There's more high. I thought that there were going to be enough level 1s that were just never played, and since most people play from level 1 to 5 anyway, that it might heavily skew the result. But it looks like they're just like I'm saying for the elf and dwarf ages, it shouldn't be 28 on a mean, because the high ones should bring it up. Looks like those high level characters pulled it up to 4.77.
Let's see. How many? Well, this is more like monsters and player characters. I won't do that one. But how about this? What is the most popular? They actually have 2 terms. And I'll give you a hint. They both start with the same letter. What is the 2 most popular words searched for?
Dungeons and Dragons?
Is that your question?
So are we talking about searched for on D&D Beyond?
Yes,
or just
D&D Beyond. They do start with the same letter, so I'll give you a little hint.
I gotta be honest, do not have a clue.
Okay. Is that your official Is that your official one, Mark?
No
Dungeons
clue.
and Dragons? What are you looking up, Mark?
I'm just guessing Dungeons and Dragons.
You're halfway there. It's Dragon and Druid.
Druid, I never would have picked that, but my love for dragons wins out, and I get at least one of them, right?
So
well, that's the title of my new role-playing game, by the way, Dragons and Druids.
I was just about to say, like, who knew? Maybe you should just call it Dragons and Druids instead of Dungeons and Dragons. Dragons and Druids. Who knew?
Yeah, because dungeons really don't make that many appearances in a lot of people's games anymore.
No, not really.
The dungeon delve is sort of dead with some folks.
In fact, they wrote about this. They said, nobody tell Dungeon, it might hurt their feelings, according to this article.
There you go.
See, D&D, wizards can be funny sometimes. They can actually do a good job. In fact, the #1 article was Druid 101 Wild Shape Guide.
Oh, because people needed a guide to figuring out their wild shapes. That's why. That explains it.
And the #2 article was how to create your first Dungeons and Dragons character with D&D Beyond. And then the 5th one was embracing our wild side, playing as a lycanthrope in D&D.
Oh, well.
There's a lot of people. So the #1 is wild shape and #5 is lycanthrope. I think I'm starting to see into people's psyches a little. They really want to, and then there are also a lot of people want to know how to turn into werewolves. They're saying, I think people, I think they're one step away from furries here, but Anyhow.
Wait, one step away? How do you know that they are any steps away?
Well, it looks like people
there
are very
a decent number of players who are furries.
That's true.
Right?
Maybe they're 0 steps away. Who knows? My point is, it looks like a lot of people are very interested in changing. I hate to say it though. I actually, my favorite is a druid that changed shape. So anyhow, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting. So Bob, the 28-year-old human fighter.
There you go.
Is the most popular.
That's my next character.
Yeah, that's the most
Although
popular
I'm going to start him off
character.
at level 4.7, whatever.
Although it sounds like that 28, the 28 is the average of like dwarves and elves and really young characters. So there probably aren't that many characters who are actually 28. So while Bob the Human Fighter probably is an actual common thing that's on there, probably almost none of them are 28. That's going to be my guess.
Yeah, now this is only from D&D Beyond.
It's like a bimodal distribution.
Yeah, this is only from D&D Beyond. But where else are you going to get it? I mean, you know, it's not like there's other places that really have this data. So I have one more piece of news, and then we'll get into it.
All right.
I can't help it. Dungeons and Dragons is adventuring into the first reality video game. That's right. Strap on your MetaQuest and look directly into the face of the Red Dragon as there's a new virtual reality game in town. I don't understand. Now, here's the other ones, I was like, okay, that's a pretty good idea. I don't know anyone. This is just a licensing deal. It has to be, because I don't know. Do you know anyone who does virtual reality? Chat, do you know anyone who actually uses VR glasses, VR gaming ever? Anyone? I don't know anyone who does. And I'm in gaming, and I don't know anyone. And I'm in video gaming, and I don't know anyone.
My nephew and some of his friends play VR games, but I don't see too many people doing multiplayer VR games.
Yeah, this is I don't think this is multiplayer. It's just it has very little information about it. It looks like it's a D&D game. That's just like it's just again, I think it's literally just they're making a dungeon. It looks like there's some looks like a kind of a 3D 2.5D dungeon, virtual reality, and you're fighting rats and stuff, but who knows? It's the first virtual reality video game. Oh, they do have a funny. I cast Ray of Motion Sickness. There we go. That's a problem. I used it once or twice, and I got sick immediately. Like as soon as I looked into it, I was like, ugh. And even my kids, who you think these guys go on anything, and they didn't like it either. I just don't see the appeal of virtual reality in any way, shape,
I'm with
or
you a
form.
bit on that too, Stephen. I find it to be. I've messed around with it. It's a little too disorienting to me.
Yeah. So some people in the chat say they use it to watch Netflix. Some people do have VR headsets. I think they're very expensive. B, the technology doesn't work that great on me. Like it's never that clear when I'm using it. Like it always is kind of fuzzy. So I think it's still. I remember 20 years ago, I was teaching at NYU, and everyone was talking in NYU about VR and virtual reality. This was 20 years ago, and I was like, what? And the technology sucked back then. You know, now it's like, okay. It went from terrible to okay. And everyone was talking how big it was, and I was like, this thing is so far before everyone's going to be using it. It has to be seamless and idiot-proof and cheap, and it is none of those things. So I think we still have another 20 years to go. But anyhow,
if humanity makes it that far with the rise of machines, right?
Well, there's always been a rise in machines. I covered that a bit on this channel. It's like it never ends. I talked about that, about how this all started with the major lawsuits that went all the way to Supreme Court about the player piano. So, you know, this stuff's always around. So it's never going to end.
I'm telling you right now, gentlemen, the locomotive is going to be the death of humanity. I'm telling you right now.
Everything is the death of humanity. It changes. It does change things. I'll leave it at that. It definitely.
Oh, I believe that.
So with that, you wanted to specifically talk a little bit about this subject, Jeff.
I did?
You did. You said, hey, let's talk about OSR as one of your suggestions. And I said, okay.
We had a super chat. Should we do that real quick?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Super chat.
Elder Goblin High Mage says, hope you enjoyed the Dungeon Tuber tier list. There we go. Now let's go. OSR.
There we go.
So do you guys talk OSR at all? Or do you, I know you mostly are focused on 5e D&D and
no, we talk about everything.
Pathfinder and stuff.
No, we've
done
everything.
MCDM. We've done OSR like I think twice or three times. We had Ben Melton on. We had Kelsey Dion on. We've done
has been on. I talk to her pretty frequently.
Yeah, you know Kelsey.
Yeah,
Shadowdark. 100%.
And you know what? This is just sitting here. I did not have this like, oh, I'm going to put this out so I can show it off. Right.
Well, so, I know. Well. Something else, I mean, you mentioned it, but then I went to a convention 2-3 weeks ago, and this is a brand new convention. First year, 1,000 people, really small.
Actually, that's not bad for a first year, 1,000 attendees.
He had a lot of really big, he had Runehammer there, I went there, Professor Dungeon Master went there, Order of the Ember Die went there.
Okay.
I forgot. There was actually a lot of, like, people there, like, you know, Goodman Games was there. Like, it was actually,
did Joseph come out?
No, Joseph didn't make it, but they had representation, and so many people obviously from New Jersey.
I would guess Jen was probably there from Goodman.
Well, keep in mind, like, Haley and all those guys are from New Jersey. They all live here, so because I'm in New York, so it was right outside Philly. So and my point is that there was a lot of people at this really small convention. A lot of people were playing Shadowdark. And I'm like, wow, you know, like, of all the games, that one's doing really well. and what's fascinating is when you talk to people who play this, and they're like, yeah, my characters just keep dying, and I've been on like my 5th character now, and it's just like they seem to really enjoy that it's just so deadly and they're dying so much, which is so weird how it's cyclical. Of like when we were growing up and playing first edition, like it was nothing but death. I mean, like if you had a character who made it past first level, good luck. I mean, it was insane. I mean, you just died. It was part of the game. And now 5th edition D&D, I hear complaints endlessly. It's impossible to die, especially once you get past the first couple levels. That's it. It's like there's no chance of dying.
It's not impossible. You can have a dungeon master who says, okay, well, sorry, your character just took a dirt nap. So it's not impossible.
Nothing's impossible.
It requires either
work.
fiat or a GM who goes well outside the bounds of the normal encounter rules in 5e to have a pretty decent chance of that happening. But other than some weird, like, very bad dice rolls with like save or lose special abilities, which can come up, and you can wind up getting bad dice rolls.
Sure.
Yeah.
So one thing I would
go first, Jeff.
One thing I would say is if we're going to talk OSR and we're talking Shadowdark, it's important for you to keep in mind that to the grognards out there, this is not OSR.
So
this is new SR.
It depends on who you're talking to. And we talked about it with Ben Melton as well. And recently also, like, Indestructible Boy asked a bunch of people to try to define it. And a lot of people said that there's multiple answers. Like Ben Melton says, and he's kind of an expert on it, right?
Yeah,
like he does OSR shows constantly. Like that's his topic.
Always reviewing OSR stuff.
Yeah, that's all he does.
And he said that nobody can agree on what is OSR. So I would say not even all of the grognards would say that it isn't. Some would say that it is. And it's because there's multiple camps. I remember that Ben split it as 2 of the main ones, but this is vastly oversimplifying things to say that because there's really like dozens, would be old school revival versus old school renaissance.
Correct.
Where old school revival is like, no, we just want to revive what we already had. This is going to be more or less a clone of classic D&D,
right?
Or to be old school revival. But OSR as a whole can't even agree on what the R stands for.
I was going to say that, and I bring that up all the time.
Shadowdark is definitely old school Renaissance,
and that is the term I use all the time. In fact, a lot of times I try to stay away from specifically saying OSR, and I will say, oh, it's got the old school vibe to it. And a lot of people who follow the gaming gang understand what I mean by that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to me, there are some things, in my opinion, that really stand out about something that is old school Renaissance. And one of the first things is that it is not necessarily rules driven. There's a saying for the OSR, which is it's rulings, not rules. Mm-hmm. So you don't necessarily have a 1,000-page rule book that's got, oh, well, let's talk about grappling as opposed to wrestling, as opposed to, no, you don't get into that. Now, I think, in my opinion, I find what a lot of people are really interested in with the OSR, especially if they're coming from, say, 5e D&D or Pathfinder first or second edition, is that the focus is on the adventure, not on the characters. So character creation tends to be pretty quick, pretty streamlined. You don't have all the various different options you would have with, say, Pathfinder second edition, which in my opinion has probably the most customization out of any player character generation. And I think a lot of people dig that because, at least my feelings about the OSR is, I feel your characters should grow by way of the adventuring as opposed to, well, I've got this huge long backstory and now my dungeon master has to figure out a way to incorporate that into this adventure. And maybe it's because I come from a game master's background. I very rarely have an opportunity to actually play a role-playing game as a player. But I think a lot of people really dig the fact that it's more about this as opposed to your dice rolls. You won't see as many dice rolls in an OSR game as you will, say, in a 5e D&D game.
Yeah, I think that what you're getting at is close to my answer to sort of Steven's thesis, maybe even a rebuttal, because I disagree that it's all about what Steven thinks it's all about.
So what does Steven think it's all about?
He thinks it's all about the dying. I think it's not, and that the dying is a side effect. But I will make the analogy to Dark Souls, because Steven makes that a lot too.
Sure.
Dark Souls is also not about the dying. People don't play Dark Souls or OSR being like, I'm playing this because I want to die a lot of times. They're playing it because, like you said, Jeff, it's about this. They want it to be about player skill. And the old school Renaissance definition that Ben gave us was that it's often about player skill. It's about emergent gameplay that comes from using either random tables or setting things out and letting the players decide what they are going to do, rather than just sort of like the narrative railroading you forward. And the players, not the characters, make a lot of decisions, use a lot of their own smarts to outwit the scenario. In some cases, by refusing to engage in a, quote, fair fight. And because of that, an actual, quote, fair fight is very, very dangerous. And you have a decent chance of dying. And that incentivizes you to use your creativity to not fight. Some of them, like Ben's own game, Nave, directly even says in the game, you're encouraged to find a way to avoid a fight because it will be very dangerous. Like, that's just in the game rules, so that people know that by the time it's got to a fight, it's already past the point it could have been if you used your player skill to try to, like, I don't know, push a giant rock on them from above or like bypass around it. So I think that, like Dark Souls, people enjoy the fact that their skill is being shown off, not their character being a mighty wizard or a strong fighter. Their ingenuity is letting them bypass things and do something so impossible, so difficult that it would have a good chance of killing people. And the deaths are a side effect and you're like, oh, well, I died. Some people in our chat said that's a skill issue as their response to when Steven was talking about it. And the idea that the game encourages you to be like, yes, that is a skill issue, rather than more modern style games would be like, well, no, that's something that we talk about as a group. We want to know when death is on the table. We're going to figure out how to handle death. It's a very different philosophy. And I think it's not focused on death, but the death has to be a part of that challenge to make it about the players and their decisions.
There has to be risk. That's how I look at it. And that goes for any sort of role-playing game. My investment in a game as a player is far higher when I know that, you know what, we really have a possibility of failure. And that failure carries the risk of some of the player characters are going to buy the farm. It could happen. Whereas in most modern role-playing games, and I'll use 5e D&D as a great example, you'll find that the players tend to be more focused on what is my character getting out of this, as opposed to we're all working together as a team. And a lot of times I see players of, say, 5e D&D, when they are presented with a challenge, the first thing they're looking at is their character sheet to see, well, what kind of feat or skill or ability do I have that I'm going to roll dice for, as opposed to, how would we address this challenge if we were in this situation? So another great example is if you look at, say, a 5e D&D approach to disarming a trap, to the old school Renaissance way of disarming a trap. In Dungeons and Dragons, it's all dice rolls. In the OSR, it's the exploration of, okay, so what does this trap look like? Well, what kind of mechanism may this have that sets it off? If we set it off, what does it do? It just, to me, I find that sort of gameplay to be far more engaging for at least the players that I have grown up with who are part of my gang, than as opposed to, okay, here's your character sheet. Go find out what can you roll for to get past this problem.
I'd say, all right, here's the thing. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and watching a lot on basically Shadowdark. Now, it's funny. I don't call them OSRs. I call it two things. I either call it old school or I call it DCC, because I've been playing DCC for Goodman Games for probably 20 years now. So in my mind, that predates even the OSR revolution, because DCC was doing it before there was OSR. And DCC always had that old school feel to them. Everything from the layout of the books to everything. I mean, they
emerged close together.
Yeah,
they were pretty close, Steven.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the early OSR was in the very early 2000s.
Okay,
yes.
I only remember it more recently, and I've only really
Do you
seen
remember
it explode.
Castles and Crusades and Osric?
Yeah, but
Castles and Crusades, I think, was 2004 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right about then.
Okay.
That's a cool game too. I talk about that quite a bit. I'm pretty tight with the Troll Lords. So and the funny thing is, Dungeon Crawl Classics, I think, is just an absolutely fantastic game. It's for a specific kind of crowd. It's not for everybody. But funny enough, a lot of people out there say, oh, no, that's not OSR.
But
two people in the chat have already said that. And it really just depends on your own definition. Like, those people in the chat are right for their definition of OSR. And I'm not going to weigh in and say one definition is right, because I feel like Ben knows like more about all the different ways that this goes by reviewing all those OSR games than almost anyone. And if he says it's muddled and nobody knows for sure, I'm going to say everybody's right.
But
I like the Renaissance definition, because to me it feels more inclusive of the spirit of player skill, the spirit of like emergent gameplay, and that you could have more games that are included in it, which I think is a cool thing. But to some people, actually narrowing it down has a benefit as well, because if it gets too big, you don't know what it is anymore. So I think any definition is fine if that's the one you want to use.
So anyhow, back to the death part. Here's the thing. Whenever I hear people talk about, especially a lot now, because a lot of people are talking about Shadowdark, they talk about two things. They talk about the torch mechanic, which everyone talks about, and they talk about characters dying. And I'm not saying that's the definition. I'm just saying what I've been hearing, and I think it's because, now think about it, D&D 5th edition, which for better or for worse is what a lot of people play, and they only play that. It's been out for 10 years.
Yep.
And let me tell you, I don't think people were playing 4th edition too much before that. So this is the majority of what people are playing, and that's 5th edition. So to them, having characters die is novel and new. This is something they probably have never seen before, or extremely rare, let alone at this rate. So I agree with you, Mark, in theory that death is a side effect of the game, but it happens to be something that is, it's like seeing a science fiction movie with special effects or without. Seeing a science fiction movie from the 60s versus today. It's like if you saw a movie in the 60s that was filmed today, you would be talking probably about the special effects, not the science fiction elements of the movie. And I think it's kind of the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's a game and it has everything you were saying, but the death part, which is just an aspect of the game, is so novel and new to these people that that's what they're talking about.
I can see that having the shock value,
right?
But I would say it's not why people want to play the game. It's like someone in chat got the idea of what I was saying. It was like TSL something.
I think you're wrong, because I think
TSL frontman who was saying that, like, in Dark Souls you don't want to die. Death is very significant to the gameplay, which is precisely why you don't want to die. But what they like is that they can die.
Correct.
And they like avoiding it, seeing that it can happen, seeing that it easily can happen if they mess up. And they like having actually not died a lot of times in a row, but once they see that they can die, because then they're like, this means something. I accomplished
the stakes
something.
are higher.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you.
There are some stakes involved, and if somebody's going to play a role-playing game and they're going to fight monsters or have to try to disable a trap or what have you, even if they're having to worry about the environment they're in, knowing that, hey, this could be the end of my character, gets those juices flowing a little bit, as opposed to, oh, okay, well, we all failed our roles, but hey, now this NPC shows up out of nowhere and saves us. Yay!
Yeah, I mean, Mark knows as well. I talk about my games a lot, and my games, even though we play Pathfinder 2nd edition, they are really hard, and my players, they like it. I mean, I hit them hard, and they almost always drop. They're always resurrecting and retreating and pulling back their characters, and they like the challenge. Now, no one's actually in this one game people have died, but in this game where they're level 16, no one's died, but these guys also run away. Like they're smart, and they've been playing, since the 70s, so they know the deal, and they're not afraid to regroup and realize they might die, and they have to think about, like, this is not just, oh, we win. So they enjoy that challenge. So I don't even need OSR, in my opinion. I could just do it in Pathfinder.
Well, if you're doing it specifically for that, you wouldn't need it. But if your players want to have more emergent gameplay, more things where they, as the player, get to decide something, and their character doesn't need the capability to do it, it's just they came up with it, then OSR could still be good for them. That's true. Well, good luck. I've tried to convince them, and they always that's
say,
fair. I know
they never want to try anything else. But
I do want to make a comment to the chat, though, because there was someone in chat who said, just because Ben has reviewed so many OSR games on his channel, that doesn't mean he necessarily knows about it if he hasn't created an OSR game. Well, good news, because he created Knave and Knave 2nd edition, and has been like, he is just a pillar of, in general, the OSR community, and has been involved with lots of stuff there. So he's not just a YouTube reviewer of OSR games. He is he is deeply into that. His channel is Questing Beast, and he does a lot of stuff.
When I was hanging out with him at Gen Con, I first met him at Gen Con this year, or actually it was last year, and we were hanging out actually every day. and he introduced himself literally. It's like, oh yeah, I do OSR and that's it. Like that's, like, because I said, oh, you should come on the channel. He goes, that's all I talk about. I was like, okay. It's like he literally doesn't talk about anything else.
He knows so much about it. He was super enlightening, and I think people should go back to our episode with him if you're interested in this topic. It's in I can find the link.
Yeah, or just look up Questing Beast.
It was an amazingly good episode, and I feel like I learned a lot from that episode too.
By the way,
there are a lot of folks out there who do cover the OSR. That you can really kind of get some of the brain pickings that they share out there.
Well,
I got a question for Steven.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So do you feel that Shadowdark is aimed at the OSR crowd?
Well, I was going to say, while we're talking, Kelsey has been texting me. It's one of the reasons I was quiet, so she might jump on if she has a little bit of time.
Ooh, there we go.
We'll be able to ask her.
She seems really nice.
She's awesome. She's super nice.
We've emailed a bit, but I've never had an opportunity to actually talk with her.
She has to go to the airport, but if she comes back in time, she'll jump on real quick to chat. I mean, I know the history of Shadowdark, and she grew up playing first edition D&D. In Geneva, right outside Geneva, and like with literally the employees of TSR. So she was born and bred and forged in hardcore D&D, I would say. So I have a feeling that, yeah, she was going for that. That's what she was going for.
And I would probably disagree with you on that.
Okay, we could ask her, but...
And the reason why I mentioned that is because Shadowdark, I just reviewed it not too long ago, and liked it quite a bit. Big thumbs up on it. But it does incorporate a lot of things that we have seen before from other old school Renaissance releases. So I have heard from many commenters who tell me, oh, this isn't all that unique because we've got this game and that game, this game and this game, that game. And to me, I sort of get the feeling that what Kelsey wanted to do is she wanted to share her love of that old school vibe.
Right.
Remember, I'm not using OSR there.
Yes.
With people who are entrenched in 5e D&D. That's why it does incorporate mechanics that are familiar to them.
I see what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think you have to do that.
I agree.
You have to do that today. That's like, I forgot who I was actually, okay. You guys are into video games as much as I have, but Persona 3 is considered one of the...
Persona.
Okay.
I played Persona 3.
Okay, Persona 3 is considered one of the greatest video games of all time. And when it first came out, it was still kind of unknown, and video games weren't quite where they are now. Persona 3 is amazing. But since then, there's been Persona 4 and Persona 5. I know people who have gone back to play Persona 3 and they can't play it because it is just too old. It's too clunky. Well, next month comes out Persona 3 Remastered, where they completely redid the game using modern sensibilities and technology. And it's the same game, but they redid it. And that is exactly what I think Shadowdark is. It's like if she went too old school, I don't think it would be as popular, and it's just you have to combine the new with the old.
I agree,
and that's what
I completely agree. And production quality on it really well done. I could easily see myself running Shadowdark if I were going to go in that kind of direction. If I were going to run an old school styled fantasy role playing game for people who had only played 5e D&D, I guarantee you, I would turn to Shadowdark. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are a lot of OSR games that I love that I think are just fantastic. But I don't think I would break them out in order to try to convert 5e D&D players or even second edition Pathfinder players into that old school mentality.
I see. So you... Jeff, I wanted to ask.
Yes.
So your favorite game is Call of Cthulhu?
Correct. Yeah,
and
I've been running that for over 4 decades.
Is Call of Cthulhu OSR, or is that like hardcore OSR? So what is Call of Cthulhu then? Just horror? But it has a lot of the same tropes in some ways.
Well, mechanically, it's not built on D&D in really any way, shape, or form.
Correct.
So it's all percentile based. To be honest, I find Call of Cthulhu, teaching someone who's never played a role-playing game before, Call of Cthulhu is far more intuitive for people to pick up and grasp right away, as opposed to any other role-playing game out there outside of things that are built on that same engine. So when people are sitting there saying, well, okay, so I'm exploring something or I'm trying to figure something out, and I would be using archaeology to do that, and I've got 45%. So that means I've got a 45% chance of being successful. I can understand that, or it's like, okay, so I have to drive an automobile really fast in and out of traffic. All right, so I have a drive automobile skill. That's the percentage. I understand it, as opposed to something where it's like, okay, I've got a 20-sided die and I'm going to add 2 to it and I need to get higher than what? So, but it's not old school. It's not considered part of the OSR. Most people look at the OSR as having been built. Those OSR games are built upon the framework of either original Dungeons and Dragons, basic and expert Dungeons and Dragons, or first edition Dungeons and Dragons. And funny enough, a lot of people out there, second edition AD&D, they're like, oh, that's not OSR. And it's like, it's almost the exact same game.
And then what about things like this?
No, that's not OSR.
What about Old School Essentials?
Yes.
So is that OSR?
Oh, absolutely. Because all Old School Essentials is basic expert Dungeons and Dragons cleaned up to make it more understandable.
Even the most hardcore
really
revival folks all agree about that, even though the one thing about OSR is that nobody can agree on what is OSR, what it stands for, and what games are in it, as we've even seen it in the chat.
But they will say Old School Essentials is definitely OSR. Yes, I don't think I've seen anyone say.
Yeah, if you create the idea web of OSR where some things, their names are maybe bigger if they're more obviously in OSR, then you branch it out. Old School Essentials would be near the middle where like things that are definitely heavily agreed upon as being OSR sit.
So then,
oh yeah,
well, because you mentioned those 3 and you left out Old School, so I was like, oh, did you forget Old School?
Well, we got Swords and Wizardry, we've got Castles and Crusades,
All right,
we've got Hyperborea,
okay,
so we've got Axe, we've got Osric, which I believe has a new edition that just came out.
So what about a lot of these OSR modules? So like this one, which I got.
The OSE stuff? Halls of the Blood King.
Yes, I was actually hanging out a lot with Diego at Gen Con. I didn't know who he was at the time. And then everyone's like, oh my God, I got to read this adventure. So I got this one. The cool thing
those are considered OSR stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
but
the adventures.
Right. But that's the thing. It's like all these adventures are pretty much cross-compatible with each other. Because
that's one of the other big appeals of a title that's considered to be old school is you can take an advanced Dungeons and Dragons module and use it for OSE. You can use it for Shadowdark. You could use it for Castles and Crusades. So that is a big selling point for OSR games, is that it doesn't take a whole hell of a lot to convert one to the other. Whereas if you were going to take 5e D&D and you were going to take, say, G1, setting the Hill Giant Chief.
Yeah, forget about Pathfinder.
I think someone in chat just said that Castles and Crusades isn't OSR, which proves, I guess, that everything, someone thinks anything isn't OSR, because that is one of the first, like one of the earliest OSR games for when the movement like started getting into names. So like, but it just shows by some definitions, maybe it isn't. Like,
it's not, because it's not actually built on original D&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or Basic Expert. It shares a lot of DNA with 3.0 D&D, which isn't considered OSR by most people. It's just funny It's really funny. I mean, I look at it this way. If you think something's OSR, then it's OSR. Now, can you convince everybody else it is? Probably not. But who cares what other people think? It's what you enjoy and what you think.
Now I want to see like the talk page and the edits on the OSR Wikipedia page, because I imagine there's like some kind of giant battle in that article.
I would take a guess that's probably locked. It's probably been locked for years.
Yeah, it looks like the discussions are all closed.
Oh, really?
And it may be that it was locked. But it does say that Castles and Crusades and Osric
Osric would
out
be
of the OSR movement and OSR related forums.
Yeah, see, Osric to me, it's AD&D. It's just a cleaned up. It's the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons first edition as what Old School Essentials is to basic expert D&D. Really, it's just cleaned up. It's far easier to understand the concepts to it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, also, there's another thing, and I think this will clarify some of what people are saying in chat. There are new classifications that came about by the early 2020s, including classic OSR versus new OSR.
Right.
And
well, you have
classic
new
OSR is probably revival, and new OSR is probably, which is NU-OSR is the official term
it's
of
new
Wikipedia.
SR is what they call
that's
it.
where you would put some of these newer ones that like Shadowdark. It's definitely not in the revival sense that it is just trying to be like basic, because obviously Shadowdark has a bunch of 5e-ish stuff in it as well.
Sure. And a lot of stuff from other games too. Index card role playing, the Black Hack. Just off the top of my head, there's probably 4 or 5 old school type role playing games that it does utilize mechanics from. And it just does a really great job of meshing that together.
Mm-hmm.
So basically,
let's talk about random tables.
We didn't even get to random
Why are they
tables.
cool again? The return of old school and classic D&D.
Well, I wanted to call it something else, but Mark told me to change the title. So
yeah, he wanted to call it a title that was like almost exactly the same as the title of when Kelsey was on last time. So I was like, we need to have a title that's somewhat different, because this is a wide topic. It's not only about dying.
all right.
Because
So one of the
Steven does think it's only about
death
dying.
in the OSR.
Okay, that's not true. There is something else, and that is, and I've talked to Ben about this, is the random table. Is that if you ever open up a book, any of these books, not this one because this is an adventure. If you open up any of these books,
I guarantee there's random tables in that.
like,
I bet you there's wandering
there's tables
monsters
everywhere. There's just look at this. There's just nothing but tables. It's just
Nave
tables.
is almost entirely tables.
That's all right. He's
Yes.
actually said Nave is all tables. It's just
Right.
tables on top of tables on top of tables, and
absolutely no offense to Ben Milton. I've never met him. Seems like a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people who don't like Nave because that's what they think all it is tables.
he'll even admit there's a lot of tables in that book.
Oh yeah,
and
I haven't seen the second edition. I am very curious about it.
We had an early release of it. I don't know if it was public or not.
It's too bad you don't have any role-playing game books, Stephen, because it'd be nice if you had some access to some.
Oh, speaking of it, I have I put on my this whole office is filled. This is my
Is that the weird?
The weird, which is nothing but tables.
Right.
It's like that's all this book is tables. Like
From Monty Cook Games.
Yeah.
That came out in print too. Yeah, so you had an early copy.
Yeah.
But like the tables are all about the idea of emergent gameplay and player driven. Use the randomization to help respond in the moment to player choices, or to allow for things to be decided sort of like by the setting and the world and the role of the die, rather than the GM just making the choices kind of authoritatively. It's a sort of a different way to delegate the narrative control.
So, by the way, 2 things. First, we have a super chat, our very first one ever. Want to read that one?
We had another one before, but we did have a super chat from Von Kakel that said Call of Cthulhu comes from Chaosium and RuneQuest.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say, now Mark knows this, I'm a huge fan of random tables, and I know Jeff, you're not, and I'm going to tell you why I'm a huge fan of random tables. Is that first of all, I like random. Well, if you're making a character, I don't actually use them to like make dungeons. Like a lot of people, like all the random tables I see, I would say I call them the softcore random tables. The tables of like what's in the forest or what's in a tavern. I'm like, I don't need a table for that. I can figure that out. I'm talking about the random tables that affect gameplay. We're talking about like deck of many things, those are the hardcore random tables where you have no idea what's going to happen. Wild magic. And I play with those. And I have almost never been disappointed whenever I use random tables in my games because it completely changes not just the characters, because so many people I play with try to pre-plan their characters. It messes up their plans, and it forces them to completely play outside their comfort box, outside what they were planning. And I'll give the perfect example. Mark's heard this one 1,000 times, but I know, Jeff, you've never heard it, and maybe people haven't heard it, but I'm going to tell it. So
they've probably only heard it 500 times.
They probably only heard it 500 times, but Mark already knows.
I may have heard it 20. You never know.
You've never. Well, maybe. Perfect example. We had. We were playing. It's actually our first podcast. Our actual play is from Starfinder, and what was it again? Shattered Stars, or what was the name of that first one, Mark? The first one?
No, it's not Shattered Stars. It is Shattered Star is a Pathfinder adventure path.
Oh no, I'm thinking I forgot the name of the one.
It's like
anyhow,
Dead Sons.
Dead Sons. So they get to the end, the very end, and they know it's the end. They know this is it. This is the final boss. This is the end of the adventure, like the end. And they have a character who was written by a Paizo employee. He was a mechanic, and he had a side, it's basically a pet class, and he had Cheddar, which was half goblin, half robot. And there was a random table, and it roll 1 from 100. And they literally spent like 2 sessions planning how they were going to go in there and attack. And they're like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, and this we're spending hours on this. So what do? And whenever there was a button, if you press the button, and you would roll on the table of 1 to 100 and see what happens. And most of it was really good. It was random, but it was good. And then they're like, okay, let's start the combat. They open the doors. They send Cheddar in. They press the button. He rolls double. No, it rolls a 1. At 100, 1 to 100, rolls a 1. And everyone looks at each other and goes, oh no, like what does that mean? And I say, you hear the words, get to a safe distance, self-destruct will commence in 6 seconds. And that's it. And then they're like, oh my God. And there went all their plans. And sure enough, in 1 round, Cheddar self-destructs, goes off, and chaos ensues. And that fight took 2 months. 2 months of real time, by the way. That's a fight. It was quite long, I would say that. And they loved it because all their plans went to crap. And that, because of random tables, I can give you 20 stories like that because of random tables. Because
and the other power of the table to tell that story, Stephen, the reason that story was strong is because everyone knew that there's a random table with results and that you rolled the die fairly and got a 1.
Right.
This is what you couldn't have done it without a random table, because Steven's group, I know from hearing stories about them, if they were just like, okay, we're going to send Cheddar in and do a thing, Steven come up with what happened. Steven says, okay, I've decided that Cheddar self-destructs. They would have been really upset that he just self-destructed Cheddar just arbitrarily, that they had this whole plan. It was a creative plan. And his response to that is to just blow them up. That seems like a vindictive GM move. Whereas when they
It's a
know
dick
there's
move.
a table,
Come on, we can say that.
It is a dick move.
yeah, where they know there's a table with 100 options that are mostly beneficial, and they chose to roll on that table, and they know one of the things that are on it is self-destruct.
Mm-hmm.
It feels fair and earned when it happens.
They didn't know that. No, the table was hidden.
It.
By the way, they had no idea.
Oh, okay, but they knew there were some
better.
bad things on it.
Well, they probably assumed that the lower they rolled, the worse it would be.
Yeah. Oh, they knew that.
One. Oh, okay.
Well, when they saw the one, they all went, "Oh no!" They were like, "How bad could it be?" I was like, "Self-destruction." They're like, "That's pretty bad."
Attack us now.
That's pretty bad.
And that's why it's important for OSR, because the OSR movement, in a lot of ways, players want to feel that as a player, what happened to them is good or bad is earned. And it's earned based on the decisions that they made. And yes, the roll of the die plays an effect in it as well, but they made a decision to roll on that random table. They decided to go to a place where that table was going to be rolled. They decided to use an item that caused that table of random effects to be rolled. They decided to engage in a combat encounter, knowing the risks, instead of bypassing it or finding some clever solution
Trying to parlay.
just auto-win.
Sure. Yeah, right.
I did not invest hundreds.
Can I have a rebuttal then for the random table?
Yes. Let me just say this. Someone wrote, I did not invest hundreds in my army of Terminators just to have them self-destruct. This was worse because it was a pet class, and by pet classes, you literally need your pet because it's half your class. And then in the first round of combat, he was gone. So, like, basically, it's like half of his class was destroyed.
I want to hear Jeff's rebuttal, though, is I am also a pro random table guy, and so I want to hear the other side.
Let's hear it.
I always find it fascinating.
Okay, so one of the things you want to keep in mind, don't naturally assume that OSR rule books are just filled with random tables. That is something that's happened more and more recently. Probably in the past 2-3 years, we started to see books that are, the page count is very heavy into random tables.
I know, I got my dungeon.
I don't necessarily dislike random tables. There you go. Start busting it out.
I'm busting it out. There's a lot of tables. There's a lot of tables in here. That's all I'm saying. That's like, there's a lot of tables in this book, but
not like you see with some of the releases that come out where it's 300 pages and 150 pages of that is just random tables, and it's all random. Some of these you'll see don't have a lot of thought put into them.
It's a lot of tables in this book, but I get what you're getting at. I get it. I totally get it.
So I like random tables that kind of offload some of the heavy lifting of the game master. I like that. I like random tables as far as giving the game master inspiration. Yes, Stephen, I have seen the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide before.
Most of our audience has not. So
I disagree.
Oh, sorry, I had the player's handbook behind me.
I disagree, Stephen. I think specifically the audience of this episode is going to be OSR focused and probably have seen it before, whereas our audience on a more typical day, maybe it's less than half.
You say that to make them feel good.
Your regulars just watching because they watch every episode.
No,
so
they just say that because then everyone's like, I have it, and then they all feel good. You say you got to do the opposite. You're not thinking, Mark. You gotta.
But sometimes you can tell, if taking a look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, you could create a dungeon randomly using the tables that are in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I'm going to tell you right now, it'll be just a god-awful mess of a dungeon. It will have absolutely no dungeon ecology whatsoever, and it will not be a memorable adventure by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's far too easy for game masters to use all these random tables as a crutch, as opposed to actually investing thought into an adventure. And yes, I get it. There are a lot of games out there that are sort of like, oh, it's no prep involved. Just jump right on in. And I'll be the first to tell you, a lot of times those adventures are not going to be very memorable. And in my opinion, my job as a game master or keeper in Call of Cthulhu is to make for a memorable experience. So thankfully, I have players who can still regale you with adventures that took place 35, 40 years ago. And I can tell you right now, they weren't created by random tables.
I see. I completely 1,000% agree with you. Is that I think I don't like I'm looking through here and Kelsey has random tables for jungle, high district,
Right.
grassland,
Right.
forest,
different
desert. I don't
locations.
use those, and I don't care. I don't need that. I don't need that. I'm talking about what's the spell, the 8th level spell, chromatic orb or chromatic spray or something.
Yeah, or you're talking about the Rod of Wonder, the
Not
deck of
even
many
Rod of Wonder.
things.
There's that roll that
Prismatic spray, the
prismatic
one that
spray
has
where you
different
roll
colors.
1d8 and it's like whether you get hit by red, yellow, blue. Like
Yes,
you don't even
that's
know what
prismatic spray.
right. You
Oh,
don't even know
hell,
what the
look at Dungeon Crawl Classics and all your spell results.
right.
Those are all
Yes.
random tables.
Right. That's what I like because
I
that,
like those too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there are a lot of random tables out there that are just far too random, and they're just included in some game books
I get it.
as a table, and it's sort of like, what is this for?
Well,
So
Mark
as a fan of
probably-
random tables,
Yes.
they can be misused. And
Oh, yeah,
you're right
yeah,
about that,
1000%.
Jeff. They certainly can. And not only can they be misused, for some groups, they don't actually work as well as for other groups. Because
Right.
I can tell you that there are lots of memorable stories that I masterminded as the GM, and I do a lot of masterminding, but sometimes they're really memorable stories I have of games I played or ran that did come from entirely something from a random table. For example, we had a really arrogant elf in the Kingmaker
Damn
game
that elf.
that Linda was running, and he was arrogant. He basically considered elves to be superior to everyone else. So he had this story arc he was going on and everything. He was our kingdom's magister, and he was in charge of education, and he wanted to teach people up to the standards of elves or something like that. So he drew from the Harrow deck of many things, and a genie princess propositioned him for marriage. And his response was that he refused because she was not an elf. And so then she was not very happy about this. So she made a deal with a mortal who made a wish with her. And they wished to transform the magister into a human instead of an elf, so that he would see what it felt like. He would understand what it felt like for his own like viewpoints. He would have to take a different point of view until he learned to be more tolerant of other people. And this was just like a major crisis for this character. He resigned his post in the kingdom because he was like, I'm no longer qualified to be the kingdom's magister. He started wearing like prosthetic ears and doing some other things to disguise what happened to him. And like, it completely changed where he was going, all off of this one kind of random role.
So I have to ask, were humans looked down upon in that kingdom?
No, I mean, most of the other people were human. The king was a half elf. Most of the other community leaders were human, except we had a dwarven marshal. But the magister was just a really arrogant, pompous elf.
Right.
But
I get it. What I was going to say is, I would think it would have been really interesting if you had, like, I don't know if you have any sort of like social hierarchy for different species and that in that game. But like, as an example, kobolds in the Midgard setting from Kobold Press, they're kind of looked down upon. It would have been funny if she had cursed him into being a species that everybody kind of looked down on. Be like, hey, how do you like it? Everybody's so high and mighty.
we
I think
did
that'd
have
be pretty
kobolds
wild.
in that kingdom and mites and a bunch of other things.
Mhm.
But she specifically picked human because she wanted to teach him a lesson
Right,
with an
because
ancestry that was totally fine to everybody in the world except
Right.
him.
Except him. Yeah.
Because she wanted to teach him a lesson that there was an issue with his perspective. And he sort of learned and he sort of didn't. And the plot got really interesting.
He's
So
a
wait.
racist.
So I'm looking at this is one of the fun things of having Mark on the show, Jeff, is
Oh, Derek said hello, gents, in a super chat. So go ahead, Steven.
Prismatic
Derek.
Spray is the spell I'm talking about. 7th level spell.
Okay.
That's what we said.
It's 1d8, and it either does fire damage, acid, electricity, poison, which is very weak, by the way, flesh to stone, confused, which is terrible, slowed, which is not great, or affected by 2 of them. Who wrote Prismatic Spray, Mark? Did you write it?
I mean, the original Prismatic Spray?
Or the updated one?
The
Either
updated
one.
one?
Either one.
If we're talking about the spells for PF2, I wrote almost all of the ones that are in the core rulebook.
Okay.
Wow.
I wrote basically the entire spells chapters.
Well, there you go.
Not completely. There's some of the best illusion spells were written by Logan, and there's a couple other exceptions. But because we realized that there weren't enough illusion spells, and Logan's like, I'll write some, and his were awesome. But I wrote nearly all of the spells, so yes, I did write the update for Prismatic Spray.
So how much thought did you put in when you're writing anything, whether it's Prismatic Spray or anything else you could think of that had random tables in it? That is it balanced? How balanced is it? Like, what was your thought process when you're making things like this?
Well, I wanted it to be more balanced, at least in terms of what the effects were going to do than the original, at the very least, so that you didn't feel too put out if you wound up with some of the results. Because some of the ones, if you go back to earlier editions like Pathfinder 1 and you look at the Prismatic Spray, it was just like you felt let down if you got a one of the effects that just like didn't do anything. And then some of them were just instantly killing you or sending you to another plane. And like the red one did 20 damage, and then you could get 20, 40, or 80 damage, which was just so different from each other. And then 4 kinds of instant lose, right? And so I wanted to try to make them a little more standardized so that the damage was never that far off from 60, or you could take 30 and have a long duration enfeeble, and have a few other things that were in there, but they were incapacitations, so that they were not as likely to land. So that in some situations you didn't want the instant win ones because they were incapacitation and they didn't work as well on your boss.
Okay. See, some people think about it, Jeff. It's not all random.
Oh yeah, if you're talking about game designers,
I wasn't doubting Mark's skill. In fact, speaking of that, I got to say, very nice job for you and the rest of the team on the remastered books.
I was
or
not
Pathfinder Second
He
Edition.
did nothing on remaster.
Not still on Paizo at the time. My name is on the books because it's still like not that much changed, and it still is huge percentage of my text that I wrote initially. But I didn't do any of the remastering process. But I do think they did a great job.
Well, then I'll take that back. I don't.
Yeah, take it back.
Yeah, take it back. But they did a great job. I thought you had remaster.
No, he left before that.
Well, he could have freelanced some stuff. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I did freelance for Paizo and other projects, but they did that all entirely in-house. And I left for Steven. That's why I'm here.
We got these. Look what just came in. These just came in. Our new. So people who have been waiting for these, they're going. They're on the boat.
I'm waiting for mine. I'm really excited.
I just got these. I only have like 2 copies.
No, you don't have to get it to me just yet. I'm just saying I'm really excited.
This is our new one. The World of Battlezoo Indigo Isles. Look at the size of this freaking thing. And it weighs like, oh my God, this thing must weigh 5 pounds. I got to stop printing.
I heard Steven was afraid to send that to me because he's afraid of me savaging it in a review.
I sent you the, what did I send you? I think you have the Dragon book, don't you? I think you have the Dragon book.
I believe I do. What was the one? I think Sammy did the review for it.
You did that one.
Right. That was, yeah, Sammy
we just came out with the sequel. Strange and Unusual. I can send you this one. This one just came out.
I've got a couple of questions for you guys.
People, by the way, I read some reviews. People said this one was the best. I read a review that said they thought it was the best monster book they've ever seen.
Unusual?
Yeah. It's pretty good. even the people who worked on it, they were like, holy crap, this one's really good. I was like, yeah, it's really good.
Well, I would say from what I have seen, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of your content, but did strike me as being really high production quality to it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, so, The quality is really high. I use one of the big things is I use very expensive. I use the nicest paper you can. And it's like this 80
so
pound.
It's not the Wizards of the Coast paper. Okay, I got it.
It's multiple levels above that.
It's multiple levels. It's actually 80 pound. It's called 80 pound like
three
gold
of their
mat.
pages in one of our pages. Yeah, okay, I get
it.
80
pound gold mat. I mean, this book alone, I think this book is 4 pounds, and it's 300 pages. That is the thing. I get it, because when they're dealing with volumes that they deal with, there's a big difference if you're going to have 1,000 books between 2 or 3 or 4 pounds, so I get it. Because like Paizo uses 60 pound paper because it saves on a lot. It saves on the space. It just saves,
Right.
and I had a lot of discussions with Paizo about this and with other people. They're like, look, you're not printing that many books in comparison, so might as well go for broke. And to be honest, the paper, it's gotten to the point that the printing is not that much different in terms of cost. Like, you'll save a little bit if you go with cheaper paper, but it's not like
Steven always wants to give people the best one.
You're not going to save that much. That's the thing. It's not like you're saving that much money, so you might as well just go with the better paper.
I'm happy to have the high quality one for the stuff that I write, so it works out. What are your questions though, Jeff? I really want to know.
Yeah, I had a question.
Before I get in, I got 2 actually.
Oh, this is heavy.
So before I get into the question though, so I guess Steven actually respects his audience to make sure that putting quality content in their hands.
Steven is always just like adding more content or value to things, like after they've already agreed how the scope of it was and what the price was. He'll be like, wait, there's more. I didn't even tell you there was more when I was advertising, but there is more. He loves adding great things to stuff because he gets excited about the projects and wants them to be awesome, which it's not always true that when you're working on something, like I'm the head of the director of game design, the person who's the head of the company that's running the sales and all the other things is not always someone who's deeply excited about every project you're doing. And so it makes, I think, for a better project when they are.
I would hope so. Yes. First question for you. So and this is for both of you. So if you did not have fantasy role-playing games to run, if you had to run a role-playing game and it could not be based on Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, or let's just say anything from Paizo or Wizards of the Coast, because I know you're really tight with both of those, what would it be?
You said that it's not fantasy, or it is fantasy? It
is not fantasy, or it's not high fantasy, we'll say.
Okay. I know. So you're like, I know people have a sci-fi fantasy thing where it's like, so it's technically sci-fi as a subcategory of fantasy, but bookstores put fantasy with sci-fi. So,
well, what I'm basically saying is, what role-playing game would you be interested in running that would not be, let's say, Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder adjacent?
Well, I actually have an answer.
What you got, Steven?
Well, it's more because I go backwards, because I mean, I play with a lot of people, but I'm my core group, and there's one thing my core group all knows really, 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 really well, and that's Star Trek. And I've seen every episode 100 times, and I watch it every day. It's on all the time. I'm always watching it. This is all we all watch, and this is all we talk about. So I do have the Star Trek.
Steven.
You have the Modifius Star Trek, Steven?
I have the Modifius Star Trek. I'd play
Star Trek Adventures.
Yeah. I'd give that a try.
I think you'd love it, Steven.
Yeah, I probably would.
It's actually really solid, and I'll be the first to point out a lot of people get kind of scared off by the 2D20 mechanics because they've heard it's really, really crunchy.
No, our guys love crunchy. It is
not with Star Trek.
Yeah, I like crunchy, but. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it, is that I think one of the reasons we play so much Pathfinder is because we all play D&D. So they're always using D&D. Like, for example, there was a battle. It was a 16th level characters versus one 19th level monk. Just one monk, and he was wiping the floor with those guys. They were just getting their asses handed to them by this guy. Marky had +3 greater striking speed wraps.
Ooh.
I know that's what he's like. So he's getting on
That
5
is like
attacks.
5 attacks
Five
per round.
attacks around, and he was hidden, and they were like, "Oh."
No, monks are terrifying when they out-level you enough that their final attacks are actually going to hit.
Yeah, that was it. He was hitting with every time.
But rather than getting too deep
3
into one of the games that we aren't supposed to pick for this, so you got Modifius Star Trek.
Yes.
So Jeff, my like truthful answer is not a useful answer, but I'll give it first anyway, which is it'll be some random RPG that I made up that I just play. No, because I play a bunch of those. Like if you ask what is the most recent RPG that you've played, that's what it is. Not that I didn't
Something
write.
you homebrewed, yeah.
No, yeah, that I didn't write for publication, but only for my own like home play.
Yeah.
If you say, okay, but other than that, something that was published, what is the last one you played that isn't like that? Then I believe
I'm not saying what's the last one because you
said what is one that you would
enjoy.
play?
Yeah,
what is the one I'm most likely to play next is the last one I play because I have a group for that, I guess.
Okay.
Although like my brother was around and he's gone to he's in Africa now, so it may be more difficult. But Fabula Ultima is one that I played recently. We definitely done Blades in the Dark fairly recently as well. Done some fairly recent Changeling the Dreaming. Other than those 3, there's like dozens of others that I've played in the last few years, but not like maybe not in the last few months. And so I'd be less likely to play them next. But I mean, there's also a lot that I've read or seen that I think are cool and I would want to try out. Like, I definitely think, since we did a whole video on MCDM analyzing it, and some of the people who watched it said that they thought it was a really good analysis, but I think I could do an even better analysis if I run and played it, if we wanted to talk about it. So that could be a fun one.
That's fantasy
to do the demo.
I'd be curious about that.
But that one is probably too D&D and Pathfinder adjacent to be included in your question anyway.
Right. I get it.
There's just too many. I wanted to play them all.
No, you just said. I like Paranoia. I haven't played Paranoia since I was a kid, and I don't know. I think I think that ran better when I was like a teenager than now, because there
is a new edition that recently has come out too. You know what I find with Paranoia, and I actually like a lot of the Mongoose publishing releases, because I would think if I didn't run Call of Cthulhu as much as I did, I would probably run Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition from Cubicle 7 Entertainment, and I would run Mongoose Traveler 2nd edition. And the funny thing is, I had Paranoia back in the day, and I picked up all the splats, all the adventures, never ran it. And I've always had the impression that Paranoia always seems to be far more entertaining to read than probably to play.
We played
the humor of reading it is there, and having played it, I find that it's highly dependent on who you're playing with, because it can be very frustrating if you have the wrong group, and very amusing if you have the right group.
If they understand what the real gist of the game is.
I mean, I
would think if you approached Paranoia as you would just about any other role-playing game out there, there are going to be a lot of hurt feelings at that game table.
If you have anyone who's actually like trying to solve the mission that they were given and being like, they're a mission-focused kind of facilitator gameplay style where they try to get the group to work together and frustration there, and do the mission, and so they got assigned maybe team leader or one of the other ones that's supposed to do that, because they're like, I'd love to be that role. That's exactly what I like to do, is get everyone to work together and do the things. They could become eminently frustrated by what the game actually is if they are surprised by it. By the way, Derek sent a super chat that said he might run Star Trek Adventures for you at Origin, Steven.
I hope so. That would set that up. Yeah, it came out in 1984. That's when I last played it. It was 1984. So I played it 40 years ago, and I was a young teenager back then.
Are you talking about the FASA Star Trek?
No, I think he's talking about Paranoia.
And I only played it once or twice, a couple times. We used to talk about it a lot, and the books were awesome. And like, what was it, like Violet, Ultraviolet?
Ultraviolet versus Infrared.
Right, your security. Again, it was more, I think, fun to read.
Computer.
We did play it. I was a player. I didn't GM it, but I do remember just people dying left and right and it just being silly. But I also love
because you have all the clones in that.
yeah,
So
there's 6 of you. So if one of you dies, just bring up another one. So you have
right. It almost becomes like you're trying to be Wile E. Coyote.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Well,
what different ways could I get killed?
My other
You have
favorite
6 clones. One time I was killed in paranoia, or they were trying to kill me for being a mutant, but they thought my next clone wouldn't be one. And I managed to escape using my ability and then like fake out that I was the next clone who had come to be delivered, so that I was actually 1 clone more than people thought that I had.
Yeah.
So then they tried to kill me off completely by killing all of my clones. But in the end, I had 1 more left that they didn't know about that was just going to continue to do stuff. And they were like, wait, you don't have 7 clones. Why did you show up back again? I was like, aha.
Little did you know.
Little did you know, clone number 4 and the ones you thought were clone number 4 and clone number 5 were both clone number 4.
Well, all I remember, and my favorite game went back then too, was Toon. So, kind of gives you an idea of the 2 types of games I was playing back then.
Kind of silly.
Silly games.
So the other question I had is, how would you like to see outlets like my own get more info out there about your game releases? Because I don't think the Gaming Gang, which is my outlet for those of you who might have tuned in late wondering, who the hell is this guy? Well, I'm sure. I don't think we've done such a great job of getting the word out there about like your Kickstarters and when you have things come out in print. And this wouldn't necessarily be just for my outlet, but other outlets as well. How can we better support your releases?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it's hard because
Oh, well, sorry. That's all the time I've got. Okay, I got to get going, guys.
I'm thinking.
I mean, you could. What Steven did in today's news segments, where most of our news segments are actually like some breaking news or some weird thing happened in the industry.
Mhm.
This week, I guess it was light because Steven just announced people's products in that setting. For the most part, there was a cool one about the statistics. But if you did that, Jeff, during your early things, I guess that would be one way to highlight products from us or from other companies.
Well, that is what my live show is all about, is sharing tabletop gaming news of the day. So I have shared some news pieces from you guys in the past, but the reality is I don't really get many like press releases from you guys.
I don't put any out. That's why.
Oh, okay. So I don't feel so bad because usually I kind of stumble upon stuff. If I do a news piece for like a Battlezoo, well, as an example, the Indigo Isles, right? I did a news piece for that not too long ago, and I literally just fell upon it. Yeah, here he goes, showing it off again.
It's huge.
Here we go. Look at that. Look at that, everybody.
It's nice. Look at that. Oh.
But I had no idea about your Kickstarter. I found out, oh, hey, this is it's coming out in print. You can pre-order it. And I shared a news piece.
Well, I'll tell you,
Steven's nice enough to hang out and chat from time to time on my show.
You know why? I'll tell you why. Okay, so and this is where it gets weird. I'm going to say from the weird point of view.
Okay.
Is that when I
you mean that recent book from Monty Cook Games you were showing earlier?
Well, because
how I segued into that so smoothly.
There you go. That's how you can tell people about products.
Well, I'm going to actually tell you from my point of view. Let's hash this out. This is actually an interesting topic.
Okay. Well, yeah, every once in a while
I actually want to talk about it because we talk about news, but we are like, as Professor Dungeon Master said, we're like the 60 minutes of news, of role-playing news. Like we dive really deep into specific subjects, and only recently I've actually started talking about weekly news topics. But before that,
I see. So folks like me, we're just piss ants covering the news. Oh, I get it.
You're a piss ant. Yeah, no, you know what I mean.
Thanks a lot.
No. Well, you do that too, but we have a lot of guests. I always have a guest every week. So we do it a little differently. I'm not.
The 60 minutes always will bring somebody on, whereas like you may be more like a CNN has their one main person
I do interviews
reporting all the different things. It's a different format.
It's a different format.
I do a lot of reviews and things like that. Which
I
you
watch
guys
your show.
don't,
I want to watch your show if I didn't like it. I've been watching your show for years.
I figured that.
I really enjoy your show. But the point is that I have sent out press releases, and whenever I send out press releases, 99% of the time, nothing happens. It's just like they go into a void. And since it's only us, and I only have so much time, I found that it was better for me to spend my time doing direct mailings to my people to do these shows, which we get thousands of views, if not tens of thousands of views. We go on other shows. I'd rather us go on someone else's show to promote it rather than a press release.
Yeah, we can come on your show.
No, yeah, we'll definitely do that. That we do a lot of. We do a lot of that because people, I don't know, seem to like when we come on their shows.
I tend to do my interviews as separate videos.
Right.
But I mean, I'm always
but that's
happy
fine
to
too.
do interviews.
And I actually probably should be doing more press releases, but I would send it out and it's just like it just seems to fall into a void. And so,
as an outside observer, I just want to say, because I've seen the press kit he sent out, he sent out impressive press kits with tons of art and information that they could use for the article. And I remember when he did that because I reached out to a few journalists just personally, like Linda Codega, who this is before the OGL stuff, but did put it into one of their articles about that had like the gaming shelf or whatever, the one with the upcoming products are. And only the people who responded to me that I reached out to picked it up off the press release. There was also one other person who just found it on their own before the press release, who was really on top of things. But it just seemed like nobody was finding the press release.
Yeah, and things have, so in the last few months, if people have not been following the news, things have been changing massively in all print media, and print being both paper and web. To like, there's been massive layoffs. Sports Illustrated just basically
that was the first thing that popped in my head.
Like Sports Illustrated, it's been around for 7 years. Where I live, I actually was depressed about this. I still am. There's a newspaper. It's a weekly newspaper that was in business for 127 years. 127 years. Went out of business last week.
Yep.
Which devastated me. I was like, holy crap. I mean, I love that paper. I'd read it every week. I was, and I'm just like, so there's a real issue with news in general.
No pun intended there, right?
And what's happening, and this is actually one of the main reasons why I've been upping our video content heavily, is that for better for worse, video is becoming the de facto news for everyone. And I don't mean TV.
No, I get it.
I mean YouTube and TikTok. That's basically it. That is where everyone, and Facebook.
But Derek has also confirmed, since he did a media day for us once, that the media kit is really legit. Like, Steven put so much effort into it. It was really, really good, I think, even compared to what I've seen major companies give for the press kit or a press release. I thought that what other people gave is the norm, and if that's true, Steven gives a ridiculous amount. If it's not true, then everything I've seen up until now has been very bare bones. And it still didn't help.
It didn't matter. Like, right. And so I would do bare bones. It didn't matter. So what we have found more has worked better for us is that we do our own stuff.
Sure.
And I send out, my newsletter is, I won't give exact numbers, but it's very big. Our email newsletter is massive. I do cross promotions with like Backer Kit, Kickstarter. We're going to be doing a very big one that we are going to be putting out a press release for in a week or so. Actually,
I'll
probably next
ignore it.
week.
That's fine.
And that one's really
Like everyone
big.
else.
What's that?
So I'll ignore it like everyone else. That's fine.
No,
Okay.
no. Well, this one is big enough that actually people probably won't ignore it because it's actually they're way bigger than they're at another level. They're like 2 levels past us. They're at a much higher level. So we're going to be working with them. I've been finding partnerships work better personally,
Sure.
and
No, I
that's
understand
what
that.
I've been focusing on. I should still do even the most basic because I get those. You know who gets it? The Free League. I'm sure you get those too. Those Free League press releases are great, and I always read them.
I'm tight with Free League.
Yeah, and they're great. And I was like, they do a good job. And let's see, Goodman Games has good press releases. Free League has good press releases. I get a few here and there from others, Legendary and stuff. But that's the thing. It's just like. Whenever I put them out, nothing happened. So I it's not that I gave up, but I kind of gave up.
Well, it was disheartening if you're, putting all this work, investing all this time into sending stuff out, and then it's like, oh, crickets, nice, okay.
Yeah, but we have we have one advantage, and I'd be honest, I'm taking advantage of what we have. We got Mark Seifter, and Mark, quite frankly, co-wrote First Edition and Pathfinder and
Second edition.
I don't know why
I wrote a lot of books in First Edition Pathfinder, but it was about halfway through the cycle.
I don't know why I said First Edition, but anyhow, you know why? Because I'm thinking there's like a Third Edition now, so I was thinking
our viewers
back
think of First Edition as First Edition D&D as well. So
my
our
point
viewers
is,
of this episode,
Mark has
in particular,
Mark has like 100 books out in Pathfinder Second Edition So I'll say, hey, Mark will go on your show, and everyone wakes up, and they're like, okay. So that's a big stick, and it helps a lot.
Stephen often will round up numbers or things like that, but he's completely right that I have triple-digit number of products that I either contributed to or did a design pass on. Now, are some of them products that are like shorter and not these 200 and whatever page books? Yes, some of them are. So that's not. I'm not saying it's
if you count
30,000 pages of content or something like that. But
I mean, we put out 36 books last year, and half of those, some of them are only 10, 15, 20 pages.
Sure,
they still take a lot of time. Trust me, a 20-page book. Yes, a 200-page book takes a long time, but that 20-page book.
Also took a long time.
Book. See how long it takes you. It takes a while. It's not that easy. So, I mean, we have it down to a science. But so for you, on the other hand, back to your point, I mean, you have your website and you have your channel. I would say you have to promote yourself a little better.
I know all about it. I'm just awful at that.
Right, everyone's terrible. Right, I don't think you're awful, but I've had you. I mean, actually, just to be dead honest, like I've asked you to be on the show before, and this is the first time I think you pursued me. I was like, "Ooh, I think you really wanted to be on the show," which is great.
You brought it up before, and then I sit there and I thought to myself, Stephen probably thinks I'm just like blowing him off, or it's like, oh, what's with this guy's ego? He won't even come on our show. So I'm just old school in a lot of different ways, not just how I like some of the role-playing games that I run, but as an example, you were talking about how journalism has changed and how we're seeing the death of like magazines like Sports Illustrated. Well, the reality is for the past 3-4 years, Sports Illustrated has been garbage. It's just been clickbait. Article after clickbait.
It was resold. That's why it's been sold. The brand name was sold like 5 times over.
Yes, so exactly.
It's just a name. It has nothing to do with Sports Illustrated anymore.
But I'm the sort of person I sit there and it's like, well, I could sit here and try to work on my SEO for a few hours and things like that, and then I think to myself, that shit's boring. I'd rather just be shooting some reviews.
That's right. SEO. Right. You don't have to tell me. I know that stuff sucks.
Yeah, no, you're a man after my own heart. That's why my channel has is probably never going to be monetized. It has so few views. I just want to put out content and not be doing any of that stuff. But it works, okay? By the way, Derek is competing about being bad at advertising himself in chat in all caps. He says, "Is anyone worse than me?"
Yeah, Derek has 11,000 subscribers, so he's not that bad.
Yeah, he can't be worse than I am for my channel, not for this channel, obviously.
Yeah, I'm
for
just
Arcane
over
Mark,
12K.
which is my other YouTube channel. I'll pitch it here, but
yeah, so you're at 12K.
We do not do like any SEO stuff. We don't even put up
I do SEO.
like thumbs on the videos,
Yeah, I do
and
SEO.
nobody clicks on them.
I do. Oh, you know. Oh, you. I was saying I do a lot of SEO. I thought you meant like...
For Arcane Mark, we don't. Steven does it for
yeah.
this channel.
Well, you're also you're on Twitch.
Highly effective.
You gotta get off Twitch because Twitch will bury you. You will never know. You'll never do
Twitch
well
buries
Twitch.
everybody unless you're Critical Role or one of a few
That's
other
why
people.
I said get off Twitch. You gotta get off Twitch.
I was on Twitch for about a week, and I was like, man, I do not like this audience.
Twitch sucks.
So, Steven,
I was like, I'm out of here.
I would consider getting off Twitch if YouTube would let me have cheers and other things like that, but it won't until my channel has like 3 to 4 times as many hours.
Fine. So this is what you do.
Yeah.
You do a couple of live streams. We'll tell everyone to show up for Mark's channel. We'll get you, and you will do it in like
no,
one
but you
day.
need the 3,000 hours. Even if we can get 500 people to show up and stay for the entire hour, we'd have to do that 6 times.
We'll figure it out. There's ways around that.
If we could actually do that, I've convinced Linda that it might be a good idea to get off of Twitch for all the reasons you're saying, but we can't actually monetize it. It's a chicken and egg problem.
Yes and no. If you get a certain number, there's lots of metrics. It's not just hours. It's
right.
It's actually not as bad.
There's engagements, the amount of time you watch your videos.
Yeah, because
things like that.
There are 4 metrics. You're correct. I have a little thing I can click on that shows me a check mark on all the other 3, and then it says you must have 3,000 hours on your videos, or it's some amount on shorts, which I don't have.
Shorts, is it down to 3? It used to be 4.
They put it down to 3.
Well, we gotta get started.
Way too many for Arcane Mark, which has I think
download all your channel. Well, download all your shows and put them on there.
We have hundreds of shows that are on there, Steven.
I don't know what to tell you, man.
We have 255 videos. So if people just watch
it. I mean, I'm at like 1,700, 1,800.
Well,
I said we have hundreds. I didn't say we have thousands
you
of
do
videos.
Your show, and let me tell you something. I felt bad for you because I was really excited to see your 1,000th episode, Jeff. And I don't think it couldn't have gone any worse.
Oh, yeah, I know.
No.
I felt terrible for you. I was like, wow, this could not have gone worse if you tried.
Yes, I know. And I was really shocked at how many people just stuck with it.
I stuck with it. I kept going to. He had power outages. Cow.
Yeah, we were having some issue here, and I never have power to go out where I live. And over a period of about an hour, it went out like 4 times, and it would just go out for like a minute and then come back up. And I was like, oh yeah.
And then his YouTube channel would stop, and then he'd have to relink a new YouTube, and then everyone have to move.
Yeah, because if you stop the stream and you start a new stream, it's got a completely different URL.
Yeah.
We have 255 videos, and we had 1,000 hours of view time in the past year on Arcane Mark, which means if 4 people watched all of the videos, which were about an hour long on average, that would have accounted for it.
Yeah.
I thought for monetize, you don't need you don't need them. Let's see, you need to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours.
Yes,
that's easy to do. 4,000 watch hours, dude.
No, I just said watch hours. We have plenty of subscribers. They just don't watch.
Dude, you can get that in a couple weeks. That's nothing.
You can get that in a couple of weeks. We can get that together in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I could help you. That's nothing. The 1,000 subscribers, I'd say the 1,000 subscribers is going to be harder than the.
Oh, well, 4,000. You need 1,000 subscribers to get the second level of monetization where you can get it on the ads.
I think it's 300 is like the first level.
No. To get the first one, you need 500. We have 624.
They raised it. It used to be 300.
And then you need 3,000 watch hours. we have 1,010 in the last 365.
Well, if you move to YouTube, you'll automatically get more. I'll promise you
So
that.
one thing I should mention here, and I don't know, you don't necessarily have to comment on this, but I'm just sharing my opinion. I feel that unfortunately, our industry, our hobby has just far, far too much coverage out there that is just absolute dog shit. And I get really tired of the clickbait nonsense.
Which is all I do, by the way. It's clickbait. I hate to say it, but it works.
Okay, so
but I have real content.
Right, I get it. I understand. Right,
Right.
That's exactly it. So one of the things that drives me nuts is where you'll see XYZ reviewed, and then it's
do that.
a 4-minute video where they kind of show you, oh, here's a couple of pages of this.
I know what you're getting. Yeah.
And that's a review.
Right.
And people tune in thinking, oh, it's a review. And it drives me nuts because we now live in a time where truth doesn't matter. There is no truth in advertising whatsoever. And it's like, well, I consider that to be a review. So that's a review. And it's like, no, that's not a review. That is an overview. No. That's a review because I say it's a review. So unfortunately, there is just a lot of content out there where all the content creator cares about is the clicks and the monetization.
Yeah.
People are going to click on that 4-minute because they see they can get the whole thing in 4 minutes.
Well, they think they're going to get it. Something else.
They can get whatever that video is in 4 minutes. Does that mean they got a full review of it? Probably not.
No, there's not. We see it all the time.
They probably would get a better sense of having a full review if they watched my 8-episode series that I have on my channel, because my channel is the exact opposite of Optimized, where you get a review of Bestiary 3 and it reviews literally everything that is in the book. And it took 8 hours to do so.
That's nothing. Look at Derek on Knights of Last Call. He reviewed every single spell in Pathfinder.
Yeah, that takes a long time.
And it took him a year. Right,
and,
Derek?
It's kind of funny that, that's content that people would want to watch. And that is content that's not being misrepresented to the audience at all. But one of the interesting things that I find, because of course, with an outlet like mine, it lives and dies on review copies. I mean, that is the reality of it. But the funny thing is, you see these people and it's like, oh, my video's got 10,000 views. And they'll tell a publisher, oh, look at how many views I've got.
I see.
And then it turns out 45 seconds into the video, 90% of the people who were watching had already left.
Well, then you have to do what I'm doing now.
And that's clickbait.
Well, no, not clickbait.
Yeah, it is.
It is, and it's not. Yes, there's some clickbait, but you break out segments. So
and then you make short videos of those, because some people only want to watch a shorter amount. They don't want to see your whole review. Maybe they want to see your 4-minute TLDR from the end of your review, which you clip out.
I do throw timestamps into my videos so people can jump to what they want to get to.
I'm trying. It's so hard to do timestamps.
I know, it's a pain.
I hate it.
But still.
If anyone out there wants to do my timestamps, please let me know. I will give you something.
It's like people are like, hey, I thought these guys were talking about the OSR and random tables.
We were.
I've been tricked.
Well, it's not. Well, I did want to talk to you about this, which was the other half, which is like what it's like to run these type of channels. I think I know what it is, Jeff, and you're not going to say it, but I'm going to say it because I hear you and watch you enough, is that you consider yourself in the know. You've been playing forever. You've been playing your whole life, and you're probably an expert in gaming, game history, every aspect. You live and breathe and die gaming.
But I'm not one of these people where it's like, oh, well, I know everything. And
well, no, exactly.
I'm never like that.
No. You don't say that, but you are that. And then these people who are doing these 2-minute reviews, who have been playing for 2 years, act
if that, and they act like they are God's green earth
God's gift to gaming. Like they know everything about gaming.
Right.
I don't think that many people. I haven't seen that many who have that persona because I think.
I do. We're both going to disagree with you heavily on this one, Mark.
Yeah.
Heavily.
Yeah, there is, and I'm not here to like point out any outlet or anything like that, but there are far, far too many people out there who just, they got involved in the hobby a year or two ago and they have monetary backing from somebody out there because they know there's money to be made covering this industry. And it's like, oh, well, if I haven't reviewed it, it's not worth buying. Kind of attitudes.
Maybe those are just not the people that I enjoy watching, but most of the people I have come across who are ones who have started very recently playing are very down to earth about it. Often very humble, like on our show that we just had, Stephen, where we had Hannah from Feywild Fiend, and she was very upfront that she hadn't been playing for very long. Was very humble about it. She had amazing ideas and opinions on the topic anyway, sure. But she was always like, I don't know if I can contribute as much because I've only been playing for a few years. And you're mentioning all these games that I wasn't familiar with. That's the funny thing. She's like, we're mentioning, she's like, I've never heard of any of those games.
Oh wow! But there's
she was very willing to admit it. So
yeah, she admitted it.
I'm saying that those are more of the people
because they love it.
Yeah. She just likes what she does.
That's not a person who's got an outlet because they're like, oh, well, I'm going to make money off of this and I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make money off of it.
So I guess I just don't watch the people who are just only been playing for a year or two entirely doing those kind of styles. So maybe there are a lot of them and I've just managed to avoid it because
you've avoided them. There's a lot, trust me.
Yeah.
It's not my style and YouTube doesn't serve them up to me because it serves me up people who are more like ones that are more my style, I guess.
Well, sure. Anyhow, I get it. I think because I think you just have to get out there, Jeff, a little bit more. And then
how much more can I get out there?
You have to go on other people's shows.
Well, you're doing that here. I bet a bunch of our viewers
too. Yeah. I understand that I am not necessarily everyone's cup of tea. So
is anyone?
I do get that.
Yeah, but not everyone is everyone's. I don't think I'm actually
listen, Stephen, you and I are both not even the cup of tea of everyone who likes our channel.
I know. I was about to say, I don't even know we're a cup of tea. People literally watch us.
Not one. Usually, of our channel, one of the two of us at least has high approval from a lot of our channel's big fans. But it's not like the overlap of like I love both Mark and Steven and their interplays is not that huge. Of some of the people who comment, at least there's usually some comments on a lot of videos that are just like. In this video, I really wanted to hear more of Mark's points.
Yeah, we get that a lot.
And not
nice going talking over him, Steven.
I get that a lot.
No, but then in another video, I wanted to hear Steven's points and not Mark's points.
We get a lot of that.
And they would be two videos where we both talked like an equal amount. It wasn't because Steven was going off in the one episode or I was going off in the other. It was just that some people are always, I think, big fans of you, Stephen, and some people are big fans of me, and they don't always overlap with being fans of the same.
Well, Philip came for Jeff,
having different people on the show.
There you go. See,
Mark, if you only had, say, a YouTube channel where you were doing just videos of yourself.
Well, Linda's on it too, but
it's Linda too. Yeah. I was watching Mark before I did my channel. Well, sort of. I was doing actual plays, but.
Yeah, that's true. Yours was what was before.
Here we go. Dire Den said, I like Jeff's content. You can go on his show for $5.
There you go. You can go on Dire Den if you want.
But I swear, I'm
more than happy to talk games with anybody.
Go on Derek's show.
Maybe I shouldn't say that because I wouldn't go on like Adolf Hitler's show if he had one.
Yeah.
To talk about games. But
depends what games he's talking about.
But the thing is, nobody really reaches out. I'm one of these people where I even feel weird asking publishers for review copies. I'm not one of these people who are like, oh, gimme,
You
gimme,
just said
or
gimme,
anything
gimme,
like that.
Steve. Like, why aren't you? You had literally said gimme, gimme, gimme. Why aren't you coming out with more stuff for me? I'm like, wow, okay, I'll give you some stuff. Don't worry, I will.
I didn't say
I'm really
that.
bad at that too. I'm so bad at
I
getting the
never
stuff
said
out.
that. I didn't say, why aren't you sending me stuff?
It's okay. Okay, I'll send you stuff.
I just asked, how can my outlet better promote you
Yeah,
guys?
that's fine. By the way,
Because, you know, now I don't do that D&D coverage from Wizards of the Coast.
So real quick, 2 super chats. One, oh yeah, the other one is Omega Rogue LP for £5 said new Paizo blog post just came out about Monster Core. So there is a preview, Paizo.
Cool.
Yeah, it has a mummy guardian in it.
Yes. I have seen Monster
I'll have to get
Core.
that out there tomorrow. My news is done for the day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have been on the show today.
That makes sense. Yeah, they have. Oh wait, they have some extra monsters too. Oh no, these are just the dragons. They already did that. So why aren't you? And this will probably be the last thing, and then we'll wrap it up. Why did you? Because I saw that. Actually, I was talking about that. I found that fascinating that you just don't want to cover WoTC anymore and D&D, especially now because they're coming out with whatever they're calling it, new 5th edition.
Okay, so the first thing I'll say is it is absolutely well within Wizards of the Coast's rights to send out review copies whenever they would like, or decide they don't want to send review copies out to specific outlets and things like that. So don't get the impression that I think I'm entitled to review copies from any publisher at all, because I'm not. But what's been going on, especially, it's far more prevalent now than it had been in the past. And I don't know if it was the open game license fiasco that kind of got them thinking about this. But when I do a review, I share my honest opinion with my audience. I think the people who come to my channel or who visit thegaminggang.com, because we also have written reviews of stuff that doesn't get videos, they know that I am going to tell people my honest thoughts. It's just an opinion. That's all review is. I try to tell people that all the time. Don't get mad at me if I wasn't like enamored by something that someone else loves. It's just an opinion. So what Wizards of the Coast is started to do is they're trying to squeeze reviewers. So we've already talked about, eyes on videos is a big deal. And eyes on videos, when you've got the coverage out there first, is a huge deal. So what Wizards of the Coast did is they used to have an outside PR company, I'm sure you guys know this, which handled reviewers. And then they decided, okay, so they were going to take people who are overly positive about their releases, and they were going to continue to work with the PR company, and everybody else had been moved to an in-house account. So D&D creators or something like that at Wizards of the Coast. So now what they've started to do is they've made sure that they do not get review copies into those people's hands until after the game has hit stores. So as an example, Planescape, there were people who were sharing video coverage of the actual books themselves of Planescape about 2 months before I actually got a review copy of it. And I even got the note said, you're under no obligation to actually review this. We're just sending this because we appreciate all the hard work you do, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So the reality, what Wizards of the Coast is trying to do is they're trying to get reviewers to put a more positive spin on their releases so that you're not going to lose out on that monetization from your video coverage. That is the reality of what they're trying to do. And I'm just not going to play that sort of game. I didn't care for the Planescape release that came out. I thought the adventure was absolute trash. And my responsibility is to my audience and to be honest with them. I'm not made out of money. I'm sure they're not made out of money. And I'm sure they don't appreciate spending money on something that they hear other people say, oh, this is wonderful. This is the greatest Dungeons and Dragons adventure ever. Which there were some reviewers out there who said that. When the reality is it's actually a relatively lackluster product. So I figured I was just going to say, hey, you know what? I'm done. I'm done covering Wizards of the Coast and 5e D&D releases from Wizards of the Coast. Because then I don't have to play their game. Because, like I said, my responsibility is to my audience. It's not to publishers. And I have had publishers drop me before because I provided reviews that I believed were honest and they didn't care for. So, I mean, that's all. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've never gotten a review copy from TSR, nor a TSR from Wizards, nor do I ever expect to. I mean,
what I know about the Wizards situation, I didn't know about that split with the outside firm, but from talking to a lot of content creators and people, is that it's very haphazard who was getting certain like gift goodie boxes, like the Mimic that you can open up and had things inside of it.
Right.
And that sometimes, just from self-reporting, I'm talking to them, some pretty big names with high subscriber counts did not get it, and some much smaller groups did get it. And then when they like compared and contrasted with each other, nobody could figure out the rhyme or reason of exactly who was getting it. And if you think that it was entirely based on like who they felt like they were in a good mood for, think again, because Linda Codega got one after doing the OGL article.
I'm not talking about goodie boxes.
Yeah, I know you're not. I know you're talking about a thing with an outside firm that sounds like it's much more concrete and is done very specifically for a few channels. I'm talking about within the people who are in the wider creative community who aren't using the outside PR firm. It's very haphazard who gets it. So.
Oh, I'm sure. I obviously enough. The reason why I know something was fishy is because I tend to be pretty tight with my contacts at various different companies. So the contact I had with this PR company had sent me the D&D Beyond code for Planescape, which, of course, as a reviewer, you would normally get access to it early. And Wizards of the Coast was not pleased that I got the code. They did not want me to have the code. So that leads me to believe that they did not want me to have access to the Planescape release before it hit stores. They did not want me to provide my audience with advanced knowledge of what I thought of it. So I understand it being haphazard. So I get that, because unfortunately, marketing departments for a lot of tabletop gaming companies are in flux, I guess I'll say. But yeah, I was informed from my contact at that PR company that Wizards of the Coast read them the riot act because they knew that I had the promo code for Planescape. So,
well,
I know it sounds a little too much inside baseball.
No.
The reality is, you know what? There's enough people out there covering D&D. I mean, they don't need my coverage by any stretch of the imagination. But it's important to keep in mind, I am only talking about 5e D&D releases from Wizards of the Coast. I'm not talking about third party, because I'm real tight with Cobalt Press, and I consider Wolfgang Bauer to be a friend in the industry. So I'm not going to cut them off. It's just simply the 5e D&D releases from Wizards of the Coast. And yes, I'm sad that I am going to miss out on the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons, because I was around for the first anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, you know, I'm just making a stand. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, this has been around. I did video game reviews for a very long time.
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
When I was doing video game reviews, they, I mean, I think I've told this story. Is that
yeah, you mentioned it seemed like it was very, very sneaky.
Oh yeah, that's stuff they used to do back then. But this is 20 years ago. So they, what did they do? It was EA. So it was with EA.
Oh wow, there's a shocker.
And they are actually really nice to me. Sort of. What happened is EA. Oh, that was it. They flew me out, and it was for one of their Lord of the Rings games, which is only interesting because they don't exist anymore. You literally can't find them because the license ran out. So find a Lord of the Rings EA game, impossible, because they're not straight. You can't download them anywhere, and you
Wasn't
can only
that Interplay?
No, this was it was like it's Lord of the Rings Part 2. I don't know, it was an RTS game. It actually was pretty good. And I gave them, and I think it was, I can't remember which came first. It was I think, no, that wasn't it. It was Red Alert. So it was like one of their Red Alert games, which I'm really big fan of, and they flew me out there. And we went to Medieval Times, and they wine and dine you, and it was fun.
Oh yeah, I know how that stuff works. We go cover Comic-Con out in San Diego.
Right, they flew me out to California, and it was great, and they put you up, and then I gave it an okay review, and they told me they were mad, and instead they doubled down because back then I was really big, so they just invited me. So when they flew me out, it was for Lord of the Rings. They flew me out, and they went all out, and then they had people from the game. They had like Billy D. Williams. They had all these people say welcome to gaming Steve. They gave me interstitials. They gave me a huge goodie bag, and I'm like, wow, instead of them being angry with me, they went the other way, and they just gave me tons of crap. And it kind of worked because actually I like the game anyhow, so I did talk about it better. But they know what they're doing. At least the good ones do. They really went overboard and it was fun, and it's fun. And
you're willing to share the story about how you sold out with the public? I'm shocked by.
Well, I wasn't sold out.
Well, he liked it anyway.
I liked it anyhow.
He liked something he didn't like.
Oh, no. Well, I'll tell you the best one. This is my favorite story, is that when Windows 8 came out, Microsoft sent me a computer, a Ferrari laptop, okay?
Yeah.
And they said, here's a free laptop for you. Or they didn't say it that way. Here's a laptop with Windows 8 pre-installed so you can test it out. And when you're done, do whatever you want with that laptop. You want to send it back to us, fine. You want to donate it, fine. Whatever you want. And I'm like, yeah, whatever you want. I think I'm keeping the laptop.
Right. No, I'll send it back to you
I'll
guys.
send back a $5,000 laptop. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't need this.
And I would get stuff like that all the time. Now, you do see everyone are saying whether or not, you say it too, whether or not you're promoted or was paid for, or, stuff like that.
Sure.
So,
the only thing I do that I get paid for is if I do a Kickstarter preview. And I don't even call them reviews because it's not the finished product anyway.
Well, how about this?
That's the only thing I ever charge anybody for.
Well, we got, you said I haven't given you anything. Tell you what.
I didn't say that.
Tell you what. You can make
Mark,
it up
did
to
I
me.
say that? Did you hear me say?
Jeff, you never said that Steven didn't give you anything.
Except a hard time.
You said that he didn't give you.
You blew me off at Gen Con.
The world of Battlezoo.
No, I didn't.
He said hi.
How did I blow you off at Gen Con? I talked to you a couple of times.
Yeah, you're busy.
Just like you're sitting there going, yeah, well,
you're busy.
You're a busy
guy. You're a busy guy.
Time.
I get it.
And I was like,
you walked in and ran away when you saw me. You were like, oh, and you left. That was a pretty good Jeff I just did. You did that a lot.
No, because actually, that's exactly how it came out too. I walked in, I went,
and then he left. You saw me.
No, I had something. I had to meet somebody.
I'm kidding. So we are doing a backer kit, not a Kickstarter, a backer kit.
Yeah.
Not this Tuesday, next Tuesday. and it is for a product that's kind of out. We do a monthly release of new ancestries, races, species, whatever you want to call them, but they're monstrous ones. And Mark wrote all of it. Mark wrote the whole thing. We have doppelgangers, slimes, mimics, intelligent weapon. You could play an intelligent weapon. Holy crap!
That one was the hardest.
That is insane.
That one was harder than like 3 others combined.
That one's insane.
All right, so I got a good name for it. I'm going to be Mournblade.
You can. There's a whole chapter on naming. Whole section, I meant that chapter.
You can be Mournblade. You could be...
See, I didn't go for the obvious.
We have some of the obvious ones in there.
We have some of the obvious ones as example names that you could pick if you want.
All right, you could be a demon, you could be a gremlin, you can be a she, you can be a stenos, a minotaur. So we are doing a Kickstarter for the hardcover. So we did it PDF only and Foundry only.
And then there was like an add-on later when people asked for it, and a few people on the Kickstarter got a hardcover add-on.
Some people asked for a hardcover, so I did a few because I thought I was going to do print on demand. But it looks like the demand is so high that I'm going to do a proper print run.
Yes, and this is a crowdfund for the print run,
for the print run and the hardcover, and we're adding to it. We're adding more to it. So it's
which means anyone who bought it before just gets the new content automatically.
They don't get the hardcover. Yeah. So it's basically for because a lot of people. This was 2 years ago when we did this. You know, we literally did it in 2022. So, and some people bought it. So, you know, and a lot of people discovered us since then because that was before OGL. So this is for people who missed out. This is also for people who want all these cool ancestries in one place. It'll be a 200+ page book. We're still figuring out the length. We're adding to it. We're adding new content. We're expanding not most, but some of the ancestries. And we're adding at least 20 pages of very cool new stuff. So it's weird because it's already out. So it's like the product's done, but we're expanding it. And then we're going to make a hardcover.
There's 2 expansions. One is we were going to add the stretch goals at the end when we were compiling it. But now we're going to add even more for this new crowdfund for the backer kit. So it's going to be quite a cool product for current fans of the Year of Monsters and for new fans who are just finding it. Plus, Steven always has these incentives for things that you get, especially if you back it at the beginning of the project. And usually it's these like really elegant looking dice cases that I'm like, I can use this. This looks pretty cool. Cases. I'm happy about it.
I love those.
This time he's got this mimic dice guardian that rather than being like, I can use this. This is cool. I'm happy about it. It's like, yes, I want this. It's like a mimic and you put your dice inside of the mimic. A mimic is one of the ancestries for your monsters.
If you look at it, it's actually it's resin based and it's like 4 inches and it literally has teeth and it opens up and holds your dice. And
all you got to do is just send me a free laptop and I'll be more than happy to talk it up.
You know how many laptops you're talking? My day job is doing technology for a living.
Just ping me.
I got a whole bunch of them in here and none of them work. You can have one.
You didn't ask for a working laptop.
Yeah, you never said it had to work. I got plenty of broken laptops.
Old computer equipment floating around here.
Plenty.
Duct Tape Studios.
My house is so full of computer equipment. I have a closet full of wire. And let me tell you, I never can find the right
Steven,
one.
I think I could tell that our latest ancestry released to the public was Devils. After you're like, well, the agreement was just that I had to send you a laptop.
That's
but
right.
You never said it had to work.
I write up almost all my contracts now, and then my lawyer looks at them just to make sure they look okay, because I don't even need him anymore at this point. And he knows I've done so many contracts. I could practically be a lawyer if I just didn't have to pass the bar.
Yeah, but by all means, just give me a quick email, ping me, even if you just send me the link.
Yeah, I'll send you everything.
And what I'll normally do is, my schedule for the show.
Yeah.
So even if you just hit me up like the afternoon before.
Yeah, I'll send you. I'll have a video.
Get a news piece out.
Like when you did your last video of mine. You're like, well, this is something. You're like, this is something. That was the one where we had the barbarian promoting the book. And you were like, that was, what's his name? From...
Oh, you're
DM's
talking
Guild.
about Luke from
DM's
DM
Guild.
Lair.
DM's Lair. And he did the promotion. I'm always trying new stuff out.
I get it.
Trying new stuff out. You'll like the new
shared the
one.
video.
Wait, you did. But you were like, you gave it a little shade, but that's fine. I don't care.
Because I was like, because it wasn't necessarily obvious what it was promoting to start off with.
It's
so
true.
It was like,
that's true. Well, that's his character.
That was something.
Well, wait till you see the new one, because the new one goes in a really different direction. And it goes in a really strange direction. But
very cool.
Yeah, well, I'm always trying stuff out, because if
I understand it,
you gotta. I mean, last time we actually did a very classic one for the Year of Legends. That was like standard classy, like the British woman over talking what we're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
That one actually came out really well. But this new one, oh boy, wait till you see it. Wait till I see it. I haven't even seen it
Steven's
yet.
always experimenting.
So I'll share the video, and the video will end, and it'll cut back to me, and I'll just have this blank look on my face for like 30 seconds, like I don't know what that was.
You might.
Uh-oh.
You might. Well,
now I'm intrigued.
Well, we're working with other. My new thing is working with other people who have bigger audiences than me and having them do my videos for me.
Nice.
I was actually always doing that, because when I started out, Ginny D did all of our videos.
That's true.
And Ginny D
also,
was
I'm sure
way
that British
bigger than me.
lady has way bigger audiences.
No one. I don't. She's just a voiceover.
Oh, okay. I was specifically picking the one that I wasn't sure, because the others definitely all do.
Oh no, she was just a VO artist.
Oh, okay.
So. But
Very
the new
cool.
one we're doing with us. But I got that. I mean, if you read this thing, you'll never read it. I mean, it's 250,000 words. If you want to read it, it is the best adventure ever made.
So, okay, don't be floating that kind of claim out there,
Steven. If you do that, it's just going to get expectations too high, and you'll get a review that's less positive than if you don't use quite so much hyperbole.
I didn't give you the time frame. It was the best adventure ever made within that one day that I made it. That's it.
Okay, so I will make a pretty a claim that's pretty strong for me about it, which is this. There are very few adventures that are as deluxe as Jewel of the Indigo Isles, because of the fact that when Steven told me how much art he was ordering, it's like, oh yeah, that NPC was named one time. I'm ordering a picture. I was like, are you kidding? Nobody orders art for every NPC like that. This is so much art. Do you know how much that art's going to cost? He's like, that doesn't matter. I don't like it when they don't have art for the NPCs. When I'm the GM, I'm going to make one that's a dream for me. And it has art. It has maps. It is super deluxe. It was written by Patrick Rini and Ron Lundeen, who were in charge of the Adventure Pass for Paizo at the time, and Linda Zayas Palmer, who was in charge of the entire narrative department and the organized play team at the time. So the three people who know those Pathfinder adventures inside and out. And so it is an extremely deluxe adventure with high production values and superstar authors and some pretty creative stuff that's in there. Best adventure of all time. I think that obviously that differs from person to person.
That one
Maybe
day.
Sure.
Steven's favorite
on that one day
of all time. Yeah.
On the day it went to print.
It was pretty good. People are playing it. People seem to really enjoy it.
People really seem to like it.
I like it quite a bit.
See it get
I like
covered
it. I'm running it
on my channel and get a video and a video review. And I hate to break it to you, it doesn't matter how long stuff is. I do read it.
Wow. Okay.
So
he's gonna read it all.
See, that's another thing that we got a problem with in this industry.
Well, this thing
too.
is a 250,000 words. So when people see it, they're like, oof.
People in chat are saying Jewel is a great adventure, incredibly good Foundry integration.
Well, that's something else.
We have the Foundry people who do all of the deluxe ones for Paizo.
Yeah, we literally have and that's something else I do. So like when we do Foundry integration, I literally write Foundry and say who does your programming and then hire them. Like that's something else I do. Like I will find the people. It's like when I hired Mark, I'm like, I'm going to be doing Pathfinder product. Who wrote the rules for Pathfinder? I'll hire him. And I did. Right. So seriously, like that's how you do it. Like you find the source. So your content should be pretty good. See, I'm totally fine with you reviewing my stuff because there's another thing, Jeff. I have confidence that our stuff if you're doing an honest review, I think you will enjoy it at the minimum. You might not say, "Oh, this is the best thing ever," but you won't say this is the worst thing ever either. You'll be honest and say, "Well, the paper is awesome, and I love the colors."
Right.
You know.
All right.
But
So
you know
that's
what I
the
mean.
end of the positive stuff.
Right.
Let's get into the. Well, I will also tell you that if I had like a lackluster review, I would not say, "Well, if you send me a check, I could change that for you."
I've actually
That's
never had
Wasn't
a-
there like a scandal
There's a
in
lot
the
of those.
industry
I've
a
never
while
had that
ago
happen.
A
about
lot of that shit going
There's a
on.
lot of those. I've never had that happen to me.
No.
Ever. But our industry is also too small.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
gentlemen,
we gotta go.
I have got to rock myself because I have a show to do in
You
a
have a
little
show.
while.
I gotta do something. I'm gonna be.
I gotta get some dinner. So
I gotta do.
I got to do that
trivia
before the
night.
show. So
Well-
yeah, so when I start doing my live stream tonight at 7 p.m. Central, I'm gonna talk like this, and
oh no.
I'll tell
come on.
everybody. I'll tell everybody I'm all talked out.
Wrong. You talk as much as we do.
Link them to us and be like, it's their fault. It's their fault.
Yeah. But you see,
Thank
you
you
had-
for having me on once again, gentlemen.
Yeah, you. had
Thanks for
stuff to
joining us.
talk
It's always
about.
great.
You had stuff to talk about.
I always have stuff to talk about.
All right.
I like how you
May
don't
not be
like random
Stuff
tables.
that people
so-
don't want to listen to.
No, I like it when people have a disagreeing opinion, but can very eloquently state it and back it up with like ideas and rationale so that we can discuss it. And
Sure. Well, it's not as if I hate random tables. That's certainly not the
Yeah.
case. I probably don't lean on random tables as much as some other game masters might. That's all.
right. Sure.
Sweet. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, gents.
Yeah.
And be sure to ping me with that backer kit that you've got on the horizon.
Yeah,
I
we
will.
will do. And everyone who's watching, if you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat.
Every
Nice.
time. Every time. Bye.